Are you crazy? That's what my friends said to me when I told them that I was going to be hosting a presidential debate watch party. In fact, one of my close friends works inside the Beltway, actually inside the Senate. He said, "Are you out of your mind? Why would you do that? Everybody's so frustrated and so angry." I said, "You know what? You don't understand my community. We have a people who are abundance-minded, forward-looking, and we can have fun together even if we disagree." And so tonight, in a nonpartisan and fun way, we're going to connect to the presidential debate. But tonight, we're going to take at it, not from a political perspective, but from a persuasion perspective. In other words, we're going to make application together on how you can be a better communicator and even be a better persuader. We're going to have a great time in chat. We're going to have some awesome comments that we're going to be sharing as we go. And I'm going to introduce all of you in just a second, along with my special guest host, Marquetta Breslin. EdTalks Live is next. I'm going to bring Marquetta right on. Yo, what's up?
Hey, what's up, Ed? How are you?
So we've been together. We've been very excited about this. And I'll tell you, we had this conversation. It was just last week. And we just said, look, so Marquetta and I come both from different backgrounds, as you know, grew up in different areas and different military services of all things. And yet I thought, you know, we're going to have this conversation. And if we can have this conversation, America can have this conversation. And by the way, both of us are nonpartisan people. We believe in the country. We believe in God's destiny for our country. But anyway, welcome to the show. Good to see you.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. When you came to me with this idea, I was all in. You had me at, we're going to do a watch party for the debate. You didn't have to say anything else. I was like, I'm in. Let's do this. It's going to be amazing.
So I'm going to say hello. Chat just blew up, by the way. And we just had like literally 50 people all of a sudden join right at once.
Nice.
On the right-hand side, if you're new to this, on the right-hand side on YouTube, there's a chat feature. Just jump in, tell us who you are, where you're from. If you're on Facebook, that's below. If you're on Twitter, that's right below you as well. So please jump in and say hello. We're streaming to all of those platforms as we speak. And I'm going to give you some thoughts, and so is Marquetta, on how to think through tonight. The plan for tonight is that we're going to air the actual live stream right here on the show. Sometimes technology doesn't always cooperate. So if it doesn't, we can watch on a different browser together and then come back. But our purpose is really, we've got a few purposes. Number one, I just want to look you in the eye and I want to tell you that everything's going to be okay. I mean, right now, man, if you watch the news, I'm talking about all the news, the consensus opinion is that America is either completely angry or thoroughly disconcerted and nothing else in between exists. And I'm here to tell you that we have a great country. We've made a lot of mistakes and we continue to make a lot of mistakes. But you know what? If you look at the innovations in the world, I can't actually think of more than just a few that weren't created right here in this country. If you look at some of the incredible nonprofits that are doing work in the world, a lot of them started right here. If you look at some of the best humanitarian things that happened, they started right here. And so I know that it's very easy to look at the things that we don't have, but sometimes it's important to look at the things that we do have. And so the first thing is we're going to come at this from a positive place. The second thing, I already mentioned this, is we're nonpartisan, okay? So neither one of us, both of us together, neither one of us are Republicans and neither one of us are Democrats. And that wasn't true for both of us. We both came from different parties. But in our lives, we've grown to understand that the tribalism of the party sometimes can lead you down a road that you don't want to go down. And we committed ourselves to being free thinkers, to be able to look at the issues as the issues. And so that's sort of a little bit of a preamble. I'm going to give you some ideas in chat in just a second, but over to you, Marquetta, if you have any quick thoughts here in the beginning as we get started.
I'm just really excited to be able to look at this from not only a standpoint as we're watching a debate to see what both parties and candidates have to say concerning our country, because we are in a very weird spot that I don't think anyone who's living right now has ever experienced, no matter how old they are. So that part is going to be great to be able to listen and hear. But on the flip side of that, the business aspect and learning and understanding the persuasion side with communication is what I'm really excited about. I always say that you have to sometimes look outside of your industry to get inspiration, and sometimes just to look at things from a different aspect. So that's what I'm most excited about tonight, is to see it with business goggles on, to watch and listen to the persuasion and to listen to how they're going to be effectively communicate. Well, we hope. Effectively communicating.
I tell you, I really like what you just said. I think some of the biggest breaks I've had in business came from taking ideas someplace else and bringing them into the business world. And we're going to be doing that tonight. In fact, just after I get done welcoming people in chat, I'm going to show you what I consider one of the most pivotal moments in any debate. And it interestingly connects to tonight's topic as well. But before I do that, I need to say hello. Chat just blew up, and I want to say hello to some of our very special friends. So I just want to shout out to my man, Zach, one of our closest friends, by the way, part of our weekly prayer team. So good to see you, Jack. Speaking of prayer team, good to see you, Shay, as well.
How are you, Shay?
So welcome to the show, and I'm going to go all the way up to the top. Rob says, this is a cool idea, and we're going to have a blast. What's up, Roy Red?
Hey, Roy, how are you?
Good to see you, Sandra, as well. David Zetz. David was talking about it on his social media today. Good. Hello, Sandra. Good to see you, Mike. What's up, buddy? Lisa, welcome to the show. Hello, Sandy. That's Sandy. Speaking of our prayer warriors, that's Sandy Bigham.
Hi, Sandy.
We actually committed to doing a short prayer just before the debate today. And by the way, if you're a person, a lot of you have done some of the prayer things that we've done. We just believe that, when you ask good things of God, good things happen. And so wherever you come from, that shouldn't concern you. We're just going to ask God for his blessing tonight over both candidates as they do their best. Okay. What's going on? So it is good to see you as well. What's up, David Zetz? Kyle Aaron, what's up, my man? Good to see you as well, buddy. Hailing from San Diego, California. What's up, Robert? Good to see you as well. I know who this is.
Oh, I know her.
You know what? You got to be, how hard it is for me to get my kids to watch my own live streams. That's good. Very good job. Diana, good to see you as well. The most positive. That's right. We're going to keep it positive tonight, too.
Yes.
We'll keep it positive. I'll tell you that.
Hi.
Hey, Brian, welcome. Good to see you from Hawaii. Hello, Angela Bell.
Hi.
You tell your husband I said hello, too. And we love you back.
Yes.
Tim says, your shirt says it all. Was exactly what we need.
More cowbell.
More cowbell. So I actually, behind the scenes, I had like a nice shirt on, and I said, Marquetta, it was like 2 minutes before I said, Marquetta, I think I'm going to go get the cowbell shirt.
And I was about to go put on a nicer shirt.
That's pretty funny. I'm like, no, I think we're good. Hey, what's up, Valerie? Good to see you as well. Say hello to Rick for me. Harisha, welcome to the show. All right, okay. We might talk about that tonight. Hey, Phil, what's going on, buddy? There we go. All right. So, and by the way, I'm going to make a comment about the comments in a second. You're more than welcome to mention your favorite candidate, but I'm going to talk about the context and how we're going to do it. And Phil, just so you know, you did a great job in your comments. So there's no problems there at all. What's up, Frank? Good to see you. Tell Mary Jo I said hello. And that is Mary Jo. And Denise Rushing, I have not seen you forever. One of my favorite person to have political conversations with, a person who's opened my eyes to more of an understanding of some things that I didn't even know about in the political world. So hello, Denise. It's good to see you as well. And welcome to all of our friends. Thank you for those of you who joined us on Facebook and also on YouTube. By the way, if you're new here, there is a subscribe button there. Click that little button. That'll give you a notification. There's 2 shows a week. We don't normally do these special episodes. But what I wanted to do real quick is I wanted to bring you into one of the most powerful moments in any debate. And I'm actually going to play a short 40-second video clip. But I want to set the foundation by saying in 1984, President Ronald Reagan was coming up for re-election. He was racing against the Democratic candidate at the time, whose name was Walter Mondale. Walter Mondale was actually winning coming into the summer. He was very successful. They had spent tens of millions of dollars on advertising to show that President Reagan, in fact, was losing his mental acuity. He had made some mistakes on stage. He had said some things that they didn't think that he should say. They said that he was losing his energy. And Mondale was actually winning in 1984 by depicting Reagan as losing his mental acuity. In the first debate in 1984, Reagan was shuffling through his notes. He had trouble actually answering some of the questions, and it further reinforced the fact that this president, who was one of the oldest presidents we had, was in fact losing his mental acuity. And then the second presidential debate happened. Let me show you this clip, and then we'll come back and make some comments on how I believe this might apply to tonight.
You already are the oldest president in history, and some of your staff say you were tired after your most recent encounter with Mr. Mondale. I recall yet that President Kennedy had to go for days on end with very little sleep during the Cuba Missile Crisis. Is there any doubt in your mind that you would be able to function in such circumstances?
Not at all, Mr. Truitt, and I want you to know that also I will not make age an issue of this campaign. I am not going to exploit for political purposes my opponent's youth and inexperience.
All right, so probably one of the most iconic moments in presidential debate. Now, the interesting thing about that, and again, we're speaking about this debate tonight as a persuasion, from a persuasion point, okay? The interesting thing about that is if Ronald Reagan said, no, I have it all together, no one would have believed him. If he had said, no, I'm good, like ask my friends, no one would have believed him. But all it took was the simple, single line of humor, and everything was taken care of from there. So the first point that I'll bring into tonight's debate is one of the candidates has been accused of having some issues with his mental acuity. And look, there's no denying the fact that he has had some gaffes that he said in public. Part of the debate discussion tonight is how Vice President Biden handles the questions that are given to him from the moderator and the rebuttals that come from President Trump. And in a lot of ways, as strange as this may sound, that it is the theme of tonight's debate. Now, what the president does with how Vice President Biden responds to those things is another story altogether. But Marquetta, over to you for your thoughts on that very first point.
I think someone said it over here in the comments. He won that debate right then. He won the hearts of the people. He just shifted the narrative. Nobody probably after that thought about his age, because instead of taking offense and being defensive, he received it and made a joke out of it. I think that's very, very, very powerful. And that's one of the things that that people should understand about persuasion. It doesn't have to always come across as just being a stickler all the time. Sometimes you can bring a little bit of humor in there and make things humorous. So that's one of my favorite clips. I first watched that clip from something that it must have been an event that you and I were at together, or that I was at your event. And that just blew me away. The way he handled that situation was brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, you can diffuse, it's so interesting. You can diffuse a lot of tension when it comes to just using a little bit of humor, or for that matter, just smiling. I mean, I teach, this is one of the videos that I use inside of my persuasion course. And inside the course, I just tell people, look, the first thing you do when things are coming out difficult is smile. And the second thing is, if you can use a little humor, it lightens the mood. It shows everybody, hey, I'm not taking myself that seriously. You probably shouldn't take me that seriously either. And all of a sudden now you have an open forum for a little communication. By the way, that works in marriage discussions. It works with kids. I have a 2-year-old. Okay. I have 4 kids, 15, 13, 11, 2. Don't no jokes about that in chat. I already know. Okay. So, and I'm telling you, if you want to get a 2-year-old to do something, if you start with smiling or laughing, things are actually going to get a lot better for you. All right, so let me do this really quickly. I do have to make an important announcement, okay? So we are going to, together in about 15 minutes, we're going to watch the first presidential debate between President Trump and Vice President Biden. We do understand, as you're coming to this, that there is about a 97% chance that you hold a political position on one side or the other. We also understand that there's about a 97% chance that you hold strongly to that political position. And we just want to look you in the eye and say that we respect your viewpoint. Your opinion is important. We actually have a country where the opinion of the people who are citizens in the country is very important. And a polarity of opinions actually, in certain cases, has helped our country move forward faster than just having a single opinion shoved down someone's throat. That said, this particular election has become pretty nasty. And if you spend time on social media, you'll see very quickly it turns into vitriol or attacks on people's personal character. Okay, so tonight, you're more than welcome to share your political opinion. You're more than welcome to share what you think worked and what you think didn't work. You're more than welcome to share what you think you might have done if you were one of the candidates up on stage. But what you're not welcome to share is anger, division. You're not allowed to attack anybody inside a chat. You will get banned almost immediately. And so together, as a community, we created 4 rules. And remember, tonight is supposed to be positive, safe, and fun, okay? To do that, we created 4 rules. I'm gonna read those rules, and every once in a while, my team will be putting those rules in the chat, okay? The first rule is your comments, your thoughts, your opinion are welcome and encouraged, okay? So don't read anything into this that I'm shutting you down. We wanna hear from you because we think your opinions are important, because you know what? If we take all 100 plus of us or 1,000 or however many people are watching and we put everybody together, we're gonna come up with a better answer if we all think about it together than if it was just one person. Okay, number 2, those comments, however, will be delivered with empathy and understanding. In other words, no anger or name calling. Now, I understand that some of the things tonight, I might actually get you a little bit angry, and that's okay if that happens. Just please don't bring it into the chat discussion, okay? Number 3, and this is important, and you've heard both Marquetta and I practice this tonight, and I'm gonna encourage you to do the same. Number 3, the candidates will be called by their proper name or title. President Trump, the President, Vice President Biden, Mr. Biden. Name calling will not be tolerated. Now, I do understand that one of the candidates tonight prefers to call people by certain names. That said, we live in a country that we believe is important to honor people in the offices that they are or they were. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you support them, but let me just tell you, I was in the Marine Corps and Marquetta was in the Air Force at times when we had commanders-in-chief from a party that we didn't necessarily agree with, but we still called them the commander-in-chief. So let's use their terms and their names. And we're not going to be tough on you on chat about that one, but if you're going to start calling people names, it's not going to work for us tonight to have the kind of community that we want. And number 4, you are more than welcome to disagree with the host or anyone in chat. That said, disagree like you would with a dear friend. So just transparently, Marquetta and I don't believe the same thing on every single issue, but you know what? We can have a conversation about it because we're friends and we care about each other. Okay, so those are your rules. Those are put into chat. You have anything to add, Marquetta, for the rules?
No, you knocked it out of the park. Let's just follow the rules.
Okay. It's 2020, man. I'm just saying. I like it. Jason, I'm just going to start with snacks. All right. So I like it. All right, and so there are some good comments in here. What's up, William Benner? By the way, I want to say hello to you. I haven't seen you forever. Hello, Patty Thor. Welcome also to the show. Man, we've got such a great group of people that are just coming in.
Yeah, we do.
Hello, Stephanie. I'm looking forward to what we have to say also.
Me too.
Excited. What's up, Brian Jones? My man. Good to see you as well, buddy. Hey, you know what? No, use just if you need to like write it in a document and copy and paste, just do that. That would be great. We just want to, like I said, I think it's just important to respect our leaders for all reasons. All right, so we're looking actually. I'm going to show you this really quickly. You're looking actually at the live stream. I've got the computer muted right now. I'm going to actually turn it on when the debate actually starts. But let me just talk about some of the tech stuff that we're going to do here inside of the room. When we get started, I'm going to throw some earbuds on to give you a really good sound experience, and you should be able to see this fairly well on your screen on YouTube. If for some reason there's tech issues, you can always open up another screen and just watch the debate while we're watching the debate. We're going to try not to interrupt while the candidates are speaking, but we might jump in here and there just to give you an idea on what we're seeing from a persuasion or a communication perspective. As with anything, technology is technology. So hey, it might work, it might not work perfectly, but who knows how that will go down. All right, so that's it as far as the tech stuff. That's it as far as the intro. So let's do this. Let's get into some of the communication stuff. I'll be watching to see when the 2 candidates are brought out. But before we do that, together here as a community, what I would love to do is I'd just love to just say a quick prayer of blessing for our country. And if you understand the history of the United States, our leaders, literally, I'm talking about like all the way to the present. Every president at some point has called on America to pray. I'm talking about everybody. Listen, all of them. So what we're going to do is we're just going to pray, and you do that in the way that you feel like doing it, but I'm just going to pray very quickly, maybe a minute or less. Marquetta, you can do that as well. We're just going to ask God's blessing for clarity and peace to our country, and for his blessing, which is really important. And then we're going to get into the communication stuff. All right, so let's do that. Father, thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity. What a gift, Lord. We live in a country where we can have a live stream and we can all get together and watch something that's also on a live stream. That's just so cool that you gave us the ability to do this. Thank you for the technology that we have. Thank you for this great country, Lord. We've made so many mistakes, but we've done so many things well too. And Father, we just ask your blessing of peace on our country. We're in the middle of a very difficult time where a lot of the rhetoric is being enacted in physically out on the streets. So we just ask, Lord, for peace. In fact, we just decree peace over our country to those to whom it has been called to be given to. And we just ask, Lord, that you would bless both of the candidates tonight on the stage, President Trump, Vice President Biden. Lord, we pray that you bless both of them, that what we see tonight would be what we need to see as a country, whatever that means to us and whatever that means to you. And we ask that tonight's show would also be a blessing to those who are watching in your name.
Amen. Father, we just thank you for this opportunity just to come together in fellowship, but also to understand what they're saying and what they're delivering from a different perspective. But I also ask that you open up the hearts and the minds of the American people and allow us to comprehend and understand at a deeper level exactly what we need to understand in order to make an informed decision when it's time to vote for our next president in office. We pray that your perfect will be done over this debate in the mighty name of Jesus. And we pray, Heavenly Father, that you just continue to show up in our lives and that you show up in this moment to allow us to see whatever it is that you need us to see and hear whatever it is you need us to hear. In Jesus' name, amen.
All right, amen. Thank you for your awesome comments. I see a lot of amens coming out. So drop your amen in there. I like that. Very good. Thank you, Patty, for that as well.
Yes.
Amen. All right, cool. Let's pray to my kids. This is one of my favorite places to pray, right there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about how we're. Let me check where we're at as far as the Commission on Debates is up there discussing the rules. So we're going to keep chatting for a little while. Oh, that's really funny. I got a political fever, and the only prescription is more explosive face than Marquetta. That's a take on this shirt. Also, our future aspirations to help lead our country. So, if you haven't, by the way, if you're not, if that just came and went, you're like, what political aspirations? What? Go to Ed Rush for America. You'll see an idea of some of the thoughts that we put on paper. And thank you, man. A lot of amens. I like it.
Right. Thank you.
Damien, what's up, man? Damien used to be my pastor before he moved. All right.
Wow.
So let's do this really quickly. Let's talk a little bit about some of the communication stuff coming into the debate. And while we're doing that, listen, this is totally free for you. There's a button down there that says share.
Yes.
You're getting excited and engaged about this like we are. It actually doesn't take long to click that button and to shoot it out on the social. So I would love if you could do that as well. And if you haven't subscribed to the show, do that. What's up, Jeff? Good to see you as well. I like it. So here's the next thing that I thought. So the first one is the idea of the mental acuity and how that goes down. And really so there's a couple ways I can see this happening. Either one, Vice President Biden just delivers, in which case a lot of that gets vindicated. And the other option is that he stumbles over some things or he has some issues speaking extemporaneously. And those are the two options. I'm not predicting what's going to happen. So I was thinking through option two, and I thought, there's actually a way he wins with option two. The way he wins with option two is the president bullies him. And then at that case, he looks like, oh, why is he treating him this way? So how the president would even deal with that, I think, is actually important. And it sets up this interesting chess match almost around some of the answers. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I agree with you. It just all depends on the communication is going to be a whole lot better if they can both be adults. They can both, one, finish speaking before the next person can speak. But there's also a lot of persuasion and communication tactics that they can use too. It can be something along the lines of over speaking. They can talk over each other. They can use the powerful, President Obama when he was in, I forget which, well, he did this period, repetition. He kept repeating the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Yeah.
And everybody, when you think of yes, we can, no matter if you're saying it now, you immediately you think of President Obama.
Yeah.
So that's a strong tactic that can be used tonight as well. I just want to see because I've noticed over the past, since President Trump got elected into office, he uses a lot of different tactics. Yeah. He will name people certain things and call them by that name. And when you think of that person, you actually think of the thing that he's been saying over and over. So not only is he using that strategy of naming them, but it's also repetition. So when you think of that political candidate, you think of the name that he's been calling them and immediately associate the two together. And it's a discrediting thing, even though people may think it's funny, it's actually a strategy and a tactic that works.
I have to say hello to somebody. I have a thought on that. I have to say hello to somebody in chat. This is my man, Billy Cadell. And if you're watching 2 shows ago, y'all remember me telling a story about my best friend in 3rd grade, whose name was Billy Cadell. Walden Academy for boys, baby. Billy and I went to play high school football together, and he's just a good man. And I fell in love with him and his mom, Clarice. I think I got that right. Gosh, I hope I got that right. Anyway, good to see you as well, buddy. What's up, Matthew? Thomas, good to see you as well. Coleman, thank you. Thanks, Jen, for joining us. And it's interesting. That's a persuasion technique. Brian Jones is saying presumptive.
Yes.
So you'll see a lot of if I'm president when you should be using when, right? All right, we're coming around the corner. I think the candidates will be introduced here fairly soon. Very good, by the way, Harisha, very good. Okay, good. Gosh, I said it and then I just was like, oh my gosh. I just wanted to say it's right. We need to reconnect, dude. I was thinking about some of the stuff that we got into, and I was also thinking, Mr. Cadell, about our the first time we met, where you tried to get me in trouble. So it's funny the way friendships happen. I'm just saying. All right, so we're just about there. We've got about 6 minutes until we start. So let's go into. I like what you said about the way people are communicating. So let me give you an example. Tonight, there will be a discussion at some point about the healthcare discussion. The healthcare discussion is colloquially called Obamacare. It's actually the Affordable Care Act. One of the principles inside of it is a principle called single payer, or not inside of it. One of the principles that gets debated is the principle called single payer. Single payer means that the government is the one who pays for the healthcare. But most Americans, when you say single payer, don't know that. And I'm using that as an example, as a place where a effective communicator wouldn't use that term. They would use a different way of describing that. And I'll be interested to see how both of the candidates, who truthfully, neither one of them has done an effective job so far, I don't think, at communicating healthcare. I'll be interested to see how that happens. And that's one example that we're going to be talking about tonight, how you can take things that everyone in Washington knows what single payer is. Most of the rest of the world, we got other things to do than to worry about that. So what are your thoughts on that?
No, yeah, I agree with you. I'm very interested in how that communication is going to come across. But you know, something that I was just thinking about, there was a debate at the last time between Hillary and President Trump, Hillary Clinton and President Trump. And I know you remember this, everybody watching probably remembers this, but imagine using this strategy when President Trump brought in all of the accusers from former President Bill Clinton and had them sit there during the debate. Imagine how powerful that probably was to a lot of people, just to sit there and see them knowing that they've accused him of whatever it was that they accused him of. But just that, you don't even have to say anything at that point. Just looking and seeing that is extremely, extremely powerful.
Yeah, those visuals are really interesting, aren't they? Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about this, and by the way, what I'm going to do, Marquetta, since we're just about there,
okay.
What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put the live stream right in here next to us.
Okay.
And we'll just talk while the stream's coming on. I've got it on mute right now for everybody watching, and then but once we get to the part where they begin the debate. This is Chris Wallace, who's the debate moderator, by the way. Once we get to the part of the debate, we'll come back in. So one of the things it's one of the weakest forms of debate is actually, it's a Latin term that you'll hear a lot called ad hominem. Ad hominem, the Latin translation for that is against the person or against the man. An example of ad hominem would be, I think we should do this with healthcare, and the next person says, well, I think you're an idiot. Okay, and so that's the most extreme example I can give you. But both of the candidates have really gone down this road. In a lot of ways, both of the campaigns have been run against the unfitness of the other person. Mm-hmm. And my best guess is you could do that tonight about 30, this is just a number that I'm throwing out there, about 30% of the time before you start to look like you've lost your own messaging. And so I'll be interested as we watch tonight to see how much of the attack from both sides, by the way, you'll see when pushed into a corner on, like, for example, the president will obviously be asked about his tax returns. The vice president will obviously be asked about his son. Okay, those are two issues that are both on the front page of the news. I'm not making an opinion about those. I'm just saying they're going to be asked. It'll be interesting to see when they're asked that question, if they answer the question or if they go on ad hominem attack onto the other side, because that tool can be effective, but not when it's used in that frame. What do you think?
Extremely, because if they don't go forward and just, I call it, I don't know if you've ever watched the movie 8 Mile. 8 Mile was the movie that Eminem, okay, so in the rap battle, Eminem, when he got the mic, he said everything that the guy was gonna rap against him was going to say. And then he dropped the mic and walked away because there was nothing else to say. And this is what I always say. If you're in a situation, whatever type of situation, this may not apply necessarily here, but own it, address it, and move on. The other candidate can't really have a rebuttal if you own whatever it is you do. So I'm very interested to see how that dynamic is going to happen with those two issues, because that's probably going to be one of the early questions that they're going to ask.
I mean, it's an interesting point. So take it from the president's perspective. I mean, like I said, that it's an issue. So if he just said, for example, those returns were obtained illegally, which I'm sure they were, by the way, by the New York Times. Yeah. That's an answer, but it's not the answer that the American people necessarily want to hear. Now, an answer he could say is, well, in 2017, I was the president. I received $440,000 as my salary, and I donated $440,000, so I didn't have any income. Like, that's an actual answer. If I was writing, by the way, that's what I would do. And don't throw negative words at me if you're in chat right now. I'm just telling you what I would tell him. Okay. If I was the vice president and I was asked the question about my son, I would say something about how I looked into it and the reason why I thought everything was fine, and then how you're planning on safeguarding your presidency from your parents, your kids after that.
Yeah. No, I agree. You own it. You say what you got to say and move on.
So Brian says, this is interesting, right? So he says whether or not Trump will keep his cool, be respectful and act presidential, whether Biden will speak clearly and succinctly focus on issues or running against Trump. Very good. I like the 8 Mile reference too. I just watched that like a couple of months ago. I think we're getting ready to kick it off here. So I'm going to go to Chris Wallace. We're going to listen in, and every once in a while we might jump in. But keep the comments going in chat. I'll keep popping them up there so that you can see. And look at Chris Wallace is like, gosh, I can't believe I have to do this. All right, so let's go listen to what he has to say.
Good evening from the Health Education Campus of Case Western Reserve University and the Cleveland Clinic.
Well, that was perfect timing.
I'm Chris Wallace of Fox News, and I welcome you to the first of the 2020 presidential debates between President Donald J. Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. This debate is sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates. The commission has designed the format, 6 roughly 15-minute segments with 2-minute answers from each candidate to the first question, then open discussion for the rest of each segment. Both campaigns have agreed to these rules. For the record, I decided the topics and the questions in each topic. I can assure you, none of the questions has been shared with the commission or the 2 candidates. This debate is being conducted under health and safety protocols designed by the Cleveland Clinic, which is serving as the health security advisor to the commission for all 4 debates. As a precaution, both campaigns have agreed the candidates will not shake hands at the beginning of tonight's debate. The audience here in the hall has promised to remain silent. No cheers, no boos or other interruptions, so we, and more importantly you, can focus on what the candidates have to say. No noise except right now, as we welcome the Republican nominee, President Trump, and the Democratic nominee, Vice President Biden.
Interesting, they bring them out at the same time so that you don't have a pause from one or the other.
How you doing, man? I'm well.
Gentlemen, a lot of people have been waiting for this night, so let's get going. Our first subject is the Supreme Court. President Trump, you nominated Amy Coney Barrett over the weekend to succeed the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the court. You say the Constitution is clear about your obligation and the Senate's to consider a nominee to the court. Vice President Biden, you say that this is an effort by the president and Republicans to jam through an appointment and what you call an abuse of power. My first question to both of you tonight, why are you right in the argument you make and your opponent wrong? And where do you think a Justice Barrett would take the court? President Trump, in this first segment, you go first, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chris. I will tell you very simply, we won the election. Elections have consequences. We have the Senate, we have the White House, and we have a phenomenal nominee, respected by all, top academic, good in every way, In fact, some of her biggest endorsers are very liberal people from Notre Dame and other places. So I think she's going to be fantastic. We have plenty of time, even if we did it after the election itself. I have a lot of time after the election, as you know. So I think that she will be outstanding. She's going to be as good as anybody that has served on that court. We really feel that. We have a professor at Notre Dame, highly respected by all, said she's the single greatest student he's ever had. He's been a professor for a long time at a great school. And we won the election, and therefore we have the right to choose her. And very few people knowingly would say otherwise. And by the way, the Democrats, they wouldn't even think about not doing it. If they had, the only difference is they'd try and do it faster. There's no way they would give it up. They had Merrick Garland, but the problem is they didn't have the election, so they were stopped. And probably that would happen in reverse also. Definitely would happen in reverse. So we won the election, and we have the right to do it, Chris.
President Trump, thank you. Same question to you, Vice President Biden. You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, thank you for doing this. And looking forward to this, Mr. President.
Thank you, Joe.
The American people have a right to have a say in who the Supreme Court nominee is. And that say occurs when they vote for a United States senators and when they vote for the President of the United States. They're not going to get that chance now because we're in the middle of an election already. The election has already started. Tens of thousands of people have already voted. And so the thing that should happen is we should wait. We should wait and see what the outcome of this election is, because that's the only way the American people get to express their view is by who they elect as president and who they elect as vice president. Now, what's at stake here is the president's made it clear he wants to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. He's been running on that, he ran on that, and he's been governing on that. He's in the Supreme Court right now trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which will strip 20 million people from having insurance, health insurance now, if it goes into court. And the justice, and I have nothing, I'm not opposed to the justice, she seems like a very fine person. But she's written before she went on the bench, which is her right, that she thinks that the Affordable Care Act is not constitutional. The other thing that's on the court, and if it's struck down, what happens? Women's rights are fundamentally changed. Once again, a woman could be held, pay more money because she has a pre-existing condition of pregnancy. They were able to charge a woman more for the same exact procedure a man gets. And that ended. when we, in fact, passed the Affordable Care Act. And there's 100 million people who have pre-existing conditions, and they'll be taken away as well. Those pre-existing conditions, the insurance companies are going to love this. And so it's just not appropriate to do this before this election. If he wins the election and the Senate is Democrat or Republican, then he goes forward. If not, we should wait until February. All right.
There aren't 100 million people with pre-existing conditions. As far as the say is concerned, the people already had their say. Okay, Justice Ginsburg said very powerfully, very strongly, at some point, 10 years ago or so, she said a president and the Senate is elected for a period of time, but a president's elected for 4 years. We're not elected for 3 years. I'm not elected for 3 years. So we have the Senate, we have a president.
He's elected to the next
during
election.
that period of time, we have an opening. I'm not elected for 3 years. I'm elected for 4 years. And the 100 million people, Joe, the 100 million people is totally wrong. I don't know where you got that number. The bigger problem that you have is that you're going to extinguish 180 million people with their private health care that they're very
That's
happy
simply
with.
not true.
Well, you're certainly going to socialist. You're going to socialist medicine.
We're now into, gentlemen, we're now into open discussion.
Open discussion.
Open discussion. Yes, I agree. Go ahead, Vice President.
Number one, he knows that what I proposed. What I proposed is that we expand Obamacare and we increase it. We do not wipe any. And one of the big debates we had with 23 of my colleagues trying to win the nomination that I won, were saying that Biden wanted to allow people to have private insurance still. They can, they do, they will under my proposal.
It's not what you've said,
But
and it's not what your party has said.
That is simply
Your party
a lie.
doesn't say it. Your party wants to go socialist
My
medicine
party is
and
me.
socialist
Right
healthcare.
now, I am
And
the
they're going to
Democratic
dominate
Party.
you, Joe. You know that.
I am the Democratic Party right now. The platform of the Democratic
to
Party
Harris.
is what I, in fact, approved of. What I approved of. Now, here's the deal. The deal is that it's going to wipe out pre-existing conditions. And by the way, the 200,000 people that have died on his watch, how many of those have survived? Well, there's 7 million people that contracted COVID. What does it mean for them going forward if you strike down the Affordable Care Act?
Joe, you've had
Pre-existing
308,000 military people dying because you couldn't provide them proper health care in the military. So don't tell me
I'm
about
happy
this.
to talk about
And
this.
if you were here,
Look,
it
here's
wouldn't
the
be
deal.
200, it would be 2 million people because you were very late on the draw. You
Late
didn't
on
want
the
me to
draw.
ban China, which was heavily infected. You didn't want me to ban
All right, gentlemen,
Europe, which
no,
was heavily
Mr.
infected.
President,
You would have
Mr.
been much
President,
later, Joe.
Mr. President,
much later.
Mr.
You're
President,
talking about 2 million people.
You're not gonna be able
President,
to
as
shut
a
him up.
moderator, we are going to talk about COVID in the next segment, but
Well,
go ahead.
Let me finish. The point is that the president also is opposed to Roe v. Wade. That's on the ballot as well in the court. And so that's also at stake right now. And so the election is all
You don't know it's on the ballot. Why is it on the ballot?
Because
Why is it
you
on the
said
ballot? It's not on the ballot.
It's on the ballot in the
I
court.
don't think so.
In the court. Well,
There's nothing happening there.
Donald, would you
And you
just
don't
be quiet
know
for a
her
minute?
view on Roe v. Wade. You
I
don't know
don't
her
know.
view.
Well, all right. Let's talk. We got a lot to unpack here, gentlemen. We got a lot of time. So,
Our job.
healthcare.
Go ahead.
And we'll come back.
Four things.
Okay.
All right.
Mr. President, the Supreme Court will hear a case a week after the election in which the Trump administration, along with 18 state attorneys general, are seeking to overturn
That's right.
Obamacare, to end Obamacare. You have spent the last...
Because they want to give good health care.
If I may ask my question, sir. Over the last 4 years, you have promised to repeal and replace Obamacare, but you have never in these 4 years come up with a plan, a comprehensive plan
Yes,
to
I have.
replace
Cowbell.
Obamacare.
Of course I have.
Well,
I
I'll give
got
you an
rid of the
opportunity. When I
individual
finish,
mandate.
I'm going to give you an
Excuse me.
opportunity.
I got rid of the individual mandate, which was a
That is
big
not a
chunk of
comprehensive
Obamacare. That
plan.
is absolutely a big thing. That was the
I
worst
didn't
part of
ask
Obamacare.
Don't argue with the moderator.
That was the
Debating him,
worst
not
part of
me.
Obamacare. Well, I'll ask Joe. The
No,
individual mandate was the most unpopular
Vice Pre-
aspect of
Mr.
Obamacare. I
President,
got rid of it.
I'd like you
And we
to,
will
Mr.
protect people
President,
with
I'm the
pre-existing
moderator of this
conditions.
debate, and I would like you to let me ask my question, and then you can answer.
Go ahead.
You, in the course of these 4 years, have never come up with a comprehensive plan to replace Obamacare. And just this last Thursday, you signed a largely symbolic executive order to protect people with pre-existing conditions 5 days before this debate. So my question, sir, is what is the Trump health care
All
plan?
right. Well, first of all, I guess I'm debating you, not him, but that's okay. I'm not surprised. Let me just tell you something, that there's nothing symbolic. I'm cutting drug prices. I'm going with favored nations, which no president has the courage to do because you're going against big pharma. Drug prices will be coming down 80 or 90%. You could have done it during your 47-year period in government, but you didn't do it. Nobody's done it. So we're cutting health care.
What about
All of the
pre-existing
things that
conditions?
we've done,
He has not cut
insulin. I
healthcare.
give you an example, insulin. It was destroying families, destroying people, because I'm getting it for so cheap. It's like water. You want to know the truth? So cheap. Take a look at all of the drugs that what we're doing, prescription drug prices. We're going to allow our governors now to go to other countries to buy drugs because
When in
they
fact,
pay just a tiny
As
fraction.
I say,
of
this
what
is
we do.
open discussion.
No,
Let me
but
ask
this
you
is
about,
big- this
you'll be
is
happy,
big stuff.
sir, you'll be happy. I'm about to pick up on one of your points to ask the vice president, which is he points out that you would like to
don't think
add
he
a
should be
public option
arguing
to
with Chris
Obamacare.
Wallace right
And
now.
the argument
No.
that he makes and other Republicans make is that that is going to end private insurance.
It is
and
not.
well, I can
Sorry.
ask you the question. And it will
Not what your
end.
party says, by the way.
It will end private insurance and create a government takeover of health care.
It does not. It's only for those people who are so poor they qualify for Medicaid. They can get that free in most states, except governors who want to deny people who are poor Medicaid. Anyone who qualifies for Medicare would, Medicaid would automatically be enrolled in the public option. The vast majority of the American people would still not be in that option. Number one.
Joe, you
Number two.
agreed with Bernie
Number-
Sanders, who's
I
far
did.
left, on the manifesto,
When
we
you-
call it.
when
And that
manifest-
gives you socialized medicine.
Look, hey,
Are you
I'm
saying
not
you
going
didn't
to
agree?
listen to him. The fact of the matter is, I beat Bernie Sanders.
Not by much.
I beat him a whole hell of a lot. I'm
Not by
here
much.
standing facing you, old buddy.
Pocahontas would have left
Well,
2 days
I tell
early.
you,
You would have lost every
All
primary
he knows how to
on
do is
Super
hurt.
Tuesday. You got
Look,
very lucky.
here's the deal. I got very lucky, and I get very lucky tonight as well. And tonight I'm going to
With
make
what?
sure, because
With what?
here's the deal. Here's the deal. The fact is that everything he's saying so far is simply a lie. I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
But you
I just
agree.
want to
Hey,
make
Joe,
sure.
Joe, you're the liar.
I want to make sure.
Graduated last in your class,
I-
not first in your
I-
class.
I want to make
Mr.
sure.
President, can you let him finish, sir?
He doesn't know how to do that. He has,
You'd be
you know,
surprised.
you pick
You'd be surprised.
the
Go ahead,
wrong
Joe.
guy,
Go
the
on,
wrong
go on,
night at
go.
the wrong time.
Listen, you agreed with
Here's the
Bernie
deal.
Sanders to the
whole
manifesto.
idea-
Now
let
you're
him-
disavowing it.
There
Go ahead.
is no manifesto, number
Please
one.
let him speak, Mr.
Number
President.
two,
You just lost the left.
number two,
You just lost the left. You agreed
I
with
think
Bernie
if I'm
Sanders
advising
on
the
a
president
plan.
right now,
How-
I would tell him
folks,
to let his
absolutely,
folks,
opponent
let him
answer the
finish.
question.
Socialized, they
doing.
call it
Mr.
Medicare.
you
Mr.
have any
President.
do?
Socialized medicine.
Mr.
Well, I
President,
tell you what, he is not for any help for people needing health care because
Bernie?
because he in fact already has cost 10 million people their health care that they had from their employers because of his recession. Number one. Number two,
yeah.
there are 20 million people getting health care through Obamacare now that he wants to take it away. He won't ever look you in the eye and say that's what he wants to do. Take it away.
No, I want to give
Number
them better
three.
health care at a
But-
much lower price
But, and
because
by the way,
Obamacare
he
is
doesn't know
no
how.
good.
He doesn't know how
I've
to do
already
that.
fixed it.
He has never
I've
offered
already
a
fixed
plan.
it to an extent.
He has never
Obamacare,
done a
as you
single
might
thing.
know, but probably don't.
Gentlemen, you
is
realize
no
if you're
good,
both
Joe.
speaking at the
It's no
same
good,
time,
and it's too expensive.
let the president, go ahead, sir.
Obamacare is no good. We made it better. And I had a choice to make very early on. We took away the individual mandate. We guarantee pre-existing conditions, but took away the
Not
individual
true.
mandate. Listen, this is the way it is. And that destroyed that. They shouldn't even call it Obamacare. Then I had a choice to make. Do I let my people run it really well or badly? If I run it badly, they'll probably blame him, but they'll blame me. But more importantly, I want to help people. Okay. I said, you got to run it so well.
That's what he's
And I
known for.
just had a meeting with them. They said the problem is no matter how well you run Obamacare, it's a disaster. It's too expensive.
I got you.
Premiums
I
are
got
too
it.
high, and
That's
it
what his
doesn't work.
peop- that's what his
So
people say.
we do want to
No,
get
no,
rid of it.
it's
Chris,
an
we
open-
want to get rid of it.
I
and
understand
give
it, sir,
something
but I have
that's
to
cheaper
give
and
you
better.
roughly equal time.
Good.
Please let the vice president talk.
Good.
He has no plan for health care.
Of course we do.
Please.
He sends out wishful thinking. He has executive orders that have no power. He hasn't lowered drug costs for anybody. He's been promising a health care plan since he got elected. He has none, like almost everything else he talks about. He does not have a plan. He doesn't have a plan. And the fact is, this man doesn't know what he's talking about.
All right,
He's
I have one final question for you.
That's a good answer.
Mr. Vice President.
Yeah.
If Senate Republicans, we were talking originally about the Supreme Court here, if Senate Republicans go ahead and confirm Justice Barrett, there has been talk about ending the filibuster.
Yeah, we
or
were
even
talking about the
packing
Supreme
the
Court,
court,
weren't we?
adding justices there. You call this a distraction by the president, but in fact, it wasn't brought up by the president. It was brought up by some of your Democratic colleagues in the Congress. So my question to you is, you have refused in the past to talk about it. Are you willing to tell the American people tonight whether or not you will support either ending the filibuster or packing the court?
Whatever position I take on that, that'll become the issue. The issue is the American people should speak.
And that's
You should go out and vote. You're in voting now. Vote and let your senators know how strongly you feel.
Chris Wallace is asking a question about the filibuster, which most Americans don't know anything about, which is
Why would you answer that
because
question?
the question is
justices,
the
radical
question-
left.
Will you shut up, man?
Listen, who is on your list, Joe?
This
Who's
is
on your
so
list?
Right, gentlemen, I think we've ended this.
He's going to pack the court.
We have
I'm not going to give a list.
We have ended this segment. We're going to move on to the second segment.
That was really a productive segment, wasn't it?
People understand.
They sure do.
47 years you've done nothing. They understand.
All right. The
This
second
is,
subject is COVID-19, which is an awfully serious subject. So let's try to be serious about it. We have had more than 7 million cases of coronavirus in the United States, and more than 200,000 people have died. Even after we produce a vaccine, experts say that it could be months or even years before we come back to anything approaching normal. My question for both of you is, based on what you have said and done so far and what you have said you would do starting in 2021, why should the American people trust you more than your opponent to deal with this public health crisis going forward? In this case, the question goes to you first, sir. 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Good luck. 200,000 dead. You said over 7 million infected in the United States. We, in fact, have 4% of the world's population, 20% of the deaths. 40,000 people a day are contracting COVID. In addition to that, about between 750 and 1,000 people a day are dying. When he was presented with that number, he said, it is what it is. Well, it is what it is because you are who you are. That's why it is. The president has no plan. He hasn't laid out anything. He knew all the way back in February how serious this crisis was. He knew it was a deadly disease. What did he do? He's on tape as acknowledging he knew it. He said he didn't tell us or give people a warning of it because he didn't want to panic the American people. You don't panic. He panicked. In addition to that, what did he do? He went in and we were insisting that the Chinese, the people we had on the ground in China should be able to go to Wuhan and determine for themselves how dangerous this was. He did not even ask Xi to do that. He told us what a great job Xi was doing. He said we owe him a debt of gratitude for being so transparent with us. And what did he do then? He then did nothing. He waited and waited and waited. He still doesn't have a plan. I laid out back in March exactly what we should be doing. And I laid out again in July what we should be doing. We should be providing all the protective gear possible. We should be providing the money the House has passed in order to be able to go out and get people the help they need to keep their businesses open schools. It costs a lot of money. You should get out of your bunker and get out of the sand trap and get in your golf course and go in the Oval Office and bring together the Democrats and Republicans and fund what needs to be done now to save lives.
So if we would have listened to you.
You have 2 minutes, sir.
If we would have listened to you, the country would have been left wide open. Millions of people would have died, not 200,000. And one person is too much. It's China's fault. It should have never happened. They stopped it from going in, but it was China's fault. And by the way, when you talk about numbers, you don't know how many people died in China. You don't know how many people died in Russia. You don't know how many people died in India. They don't exactly give you a straight count, just so you understand. But if you look at what we've done, I closed it and you said he's xenophobic. He's a racist and he's xenophobic because you didn't think I should have closed our country.
No, just
Wait a
it
minute.
says 2 minutes.
You didn't think we should have closed our country because you thought it was terrible. You wouldn't have closed it for another 2 months. By my doing it early, in fact, Dr. Fauci said President Trump saved thousands of lives. Many of your Democrat governors said President Trump did a phenomenal job. We worked with the governor. Oh, really? Go take a look. The governors said I did a phenomenal job. Most of them said that. In fact, people that would not be necessarily on my side said that. President Trump did a phenomenal job. We did. We got the gowns. We got the masks. We made the ventilators. You wouldn't have made ventilators. And now we're weeks away from a vaccine. We're doing therapeutics already. Fewer people are dying when they get sick. Far fewer people are dying. We've done a great job. The only thing I haven't done a good job, and that's because of the fake news. No matter what you say to them, they give you bad press on it. It's just fake news. They give you good press. They give me bad press because that's the way it is, unfortunately. But let me just tell you something. I don't care. I've gotten used to it. But I'll tell you, Joe, you could never have done the job that we did. You don't have it in your blood. You could have never done that job.
I know how to do the job. I know how to get the job
Well, you
done.
didn't do very well in swine flu. H1N1, you were a disaster. Your own chief of staff said you were a disaster.
14,000 people died, not 200,000. There was
A
no
very-
economic recession.
Sir, you made a
There was-
Far
there
less
was no
lethal
recession.
disease.
you made a point. Let him answer.
And there was we didn't shut down the economy. This is his economy he shut down. The reason it's shut down is because, look, you folks at home, how many of you got up this morning and had an empty chair at the kitchen table because someone died of COVID? How many of you were in a situation where you lost your mom or dad and you couldn't even speak to them? You had a nurse holding a phone up so you could, in fact, say goodbye.
You would have lost far
How
more
many
people.
people?
Far
That is-
more people.
And
You would have been
And by the way,
months late.
your own
You were
his
months
his
behind me,
own
Joe.
CDC director says we could lose as many as another 200,000 people between now and the end of the year. And he held up. He said, if we just wear a mask, we can save half those numbers. Just the mask. And by the way, in terms of the whole notion of a vaccine. We're for a vaccine, but I don't trust him at all, nor do you. I know you don't. What we trust is a scientist.
You don't
we
trust
Dr.
Johnson
Fauci.
& Johnson, Pfizer?
And
Okay,
by the way,
gentlemen, let me move on to questions about the future because you both have touched on two of the questions I'm going to ask. Focusing on the future first, President Trump, you have repeatedly either contradicted or been at odds with some of your government's own top scientists. The week before last, the head of the Centers for Disease Control, Dr. Redfield, said it would be summer before the vaccine would become generally available to the public. You said that he was confused and mistaken. Those were your two words.
Yeah.
But Dr. Slaoui, the head of your Operation Warp Speed, has said exactly the same thing. Are they both wrong?
Well, I've spoken to the companies and we can have it a lot sooner. It's a very political thing because people like this would rather make it political than save lives. It is a very political thing. I've spoken to Pfizer. I've spoken to all of the people that you have to speak to. We have great Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and others. They can go faster than that by a lot. Become very political because the left, or I don't know if I call them left, I don't know what I call
the
them.
head of your Operation Warp Speed, Dr. Slaoui?
I disagree with him. Yeah, no, I disagree with both of them. And he didn't say that. He said it could be there, but it could also be much sooner. I had him in my office 2 days ago.
He talked about the summer, sir, before it's generally available. Just like
He said
Dr.
it's a
Redfield.
possibility that we'll have the answer before November 1st. It could also
I'm
be
talking about
after
when it's
that.
generally available. not when
Well,
it will
we're
be.
going to deliver it right away. We have the military all set up logistically. They're all set up. We have our military that delivers soldiers, and they can do 200,000 a day. They're going to be
This is
delivering
the
the
same man
It's
who
all
told
set
you
up.
by Easter this would be gone away. By the warm weather, it'd be gone. Miraculous, like a miracle. And by the way, maybe you could inject some bleach in your arm, and that would take care of it. This is the
That
same
was
man.
said sarcastically.
That was
you
him.
know that.
I
That
know.
was said sarcastically.
And so here's the deal. This man is talking about a vaccine. Every serious company is talking about maybe having a vaccine done by the end of the year. But the distribution of that vaccine will not occur until sometime beginning or the middle of next year to get it out, if we get the vaccine. And pray God we will. Pray God we will.
Mr. Vice President, I want to pick up
You'll have
on
the
that.
vaccine
I
sooner
want to
than
pick
that.
up on this question, though. You say the public can trust the scientists, but they can't trust President Trump. In fact, you said that again tonight. Your running mate, Senator Harris, goes further, saying the public health experts, quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed. Given the fact that polls already show that people are concerned about the vaccine and are reluctant to take it, are you and your running mate, Senator Harris, contributing to that fear?
No more than the question you just asked him. You pointed out he puts pressure and disagrees with his own scientists.
But you're saying
Everybody
you can't,
knows.
or Senator
And
Harris is saying
no,
you can't trust the scientists.
No, you can trust the scientists. She didn't say that. You can't trust.
She said the public health experts, quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed.
Well, that's what he's going to try to do. But there's millions of scientists, there's thousands of scientists out there, like here at this great hospital, that don't work for him. Their job doesn't depend on him. That's not. They're the people. And by the way,
spoke to the scientists that are in charge.
By the way,
they will have the vaccine very soon.
Do you believe for a moment what he's telling you in light of all the lies he's told you about the whole issue relating to COVID? He still hasn't even acknowledged that he knew this was happening, knew how dangerous it was going to be back in February, and he didn't even tell you. He's on record as saying it. He panicked, or he just looked at the stock market, one of the two, because guess what? A lot of people died, and a lot more are going to die unless he gets a lot smarter, a lot quicker.
So,
Mr. President?
Did you use the word smart? So you said you went to Delaware State, but you forgot the name of your college.
Ad hominem.
Delaware State. You graduated
Yes.
either the lowest or almost the lowest in your class. Don't ever use the word smart with me. Don't ever use that word.
Oh, give me a break.
Because you know what? There's nothing smart about you, Joe. 47 years you've done nothing.
Let's have this debate.
And if you would have had, let me just tell you something, Joe.
No,
If you would have had the charge of what I was put through, I had to close the greatest economy in the history of our country. And by the way, now it's being built again.
See,
and it's
We're going to
going
get
up
to the
fast.
economy in the next segment, sir.
Okay.
It's going up fast.
Okay.
Looking forward to talking.
When it comes to how the virus has been handled so far, the two of you have taken very different approaches, and this is going to affect how the virus is handled going forward.
I'm just going to pause real quick and just say we're going to post community rules one more time. Just be nice to everyone, including the candidates. Okay, we're trying to be nice too. We're going to get to this next question. And I would say that there's at least 2 or 3 great persuasion points we're going to be talking about in the post. Okay, cool. You guys are doing great. Keep it up.
The plan is you've got to provide these businesses the ability to have the money to be able to reopen with the PPE as well as with the sanitation they need. You have to
Tell
provide
that
them
to Nancy
plastic.
Pelosi.
Well, he's just shush for a minute.
Tell it to Nancy Pelosi. And Schumer,
by the
Brian
way,
Chuck.
Nancy Pelosi and Schumer, they have a plan. He won't even meet with them. The Republicans won't meet with the Senate, and he sits in his golf course. And I mean, literally, think about it.
You probably play more than I do, Joe.
What about this question of reopening?
Dueling ad hominems.
He wants to shut down this country, and I want to keep it open. And we did a great thing by shutting it down. Wait a minute, Joe. Let me shut you down for a second, Joe, just for 1 second. He wants to shut down the country. We just went through it. We had to because we didn't know anything about the disease. Now we found that elderly people with heart problems and diabetes and different problems are very, very vulnerable. We learned a lot. Young children aren't. Even younger people aren't. We've learned a lot. But he wants to shut it down. More people will be hurt by continuing. If you look at Pennsylvania, if you look at certain states that have been shut down, they have Democrat governors all. One of the reasons they're shut down is because they want to keep it shut down until after the election on November 3rd.
I want to move on to another subject. I want to move on to another subject.
But those states are not doing well that are shut down right now.
President Trump, you have begun to increasingly question the effectiveness.
That was one of the better answers by the president, by the way. It came in a little
and
late.
in fact, recently you have cited the issue of waiters touching their masks and touching plates. Are you questioning
I think
the
masks
efficacy
are okay.
of
You have
masks?
to understand, if you look, I mean, I have a mask right here. I put a mask on, when I think I need it. Tonight, as an example, everybody's had a test and you've had social distancing and all of the things that you have to, but I wear masks when needed. When needed, I wear masks.
Okay, let me ask.
I don't wear masks like him. Every time you see him, he's got a mask. He could be speaking 200 feet away from me, and he shows up with the biggest mask I've ever seen. I will say,
Vice President Biden, go ahead.
Look, the way to open businesses is give them the wherewithal to be able to open. We provided money. The
But
Congress,
I was asking you, sir, about masks.
well, masks make a big difference. His own head of the CDC said if we just wore masks between now, everybody wore masks and social distance between now and January, we'd probably save up to 100,000 lives. It matters.
And they've also
It
said the
matters.
opposite. They've
And
also said
no serious person said the opposite.
they've
No
also said, well, look at
serious.
All right, I wanna
Dr.
ask you-
Fauci. Dr. Fauci said the
He
opposite.
did not
I
say
want to
the
ask you, we got a
said
little
very
bit more than a
strongly,
minute left in this
Masks
segment.
are not good. Then he changed his mind. He said masks are good.
I
I'm
wanna
okay
ask-
with masks.
I
I'm
want to
not
ask you
fighting
both
masks.
about one last subject, because your different approaches has even affected the way that you have campaigned. President Trump, you're holding large rallies with crowds packed together, thousands of people. Outside, yes, sir, agreed. Vice President Biden, you are holding much smaller events with
Because nobody will show up.
people with.
It's true. Nobody shows up.
In any case, why you holding the big rallies? Why you not? You goes first, sir.
Because people want to hear what I have to say. I mean,
But are you
I've
not
done a
worried
great
about it
job
spreading
as a
disease?
president, and I'll have 35,000 people show up at airports. We use airports.
Are you
and
not worried
hangars,
about
and we
the
have a
disease
lot of
issue,
people.
sir?
Well, so far we have had no problem whatsoever. It's outside. That's a big difference, according to the experts. And we do them outside. We have tremendous crowds, as you see. I mean, and literally on 24 hours notice. And Joe does the circles and has 3 people someplace.
Okay.
By the way, did you
This-
see one of the last big rallies he had? And a reporter came up to him to ask him a question. He said, no, stand back. Put on your mask. Put on a mask. Have you been tested? I'm way far away from those other people. That's what he said. I'm going to be okay. He's not worried about you. He's not worried about the people out there breathing in one another.
We've had no
Cheek
negative
to
effect.
jowl. No negative effect.
We've
Come
had
on.
no negative effect. And we've had 35, 40,000
All right, you
people
wanna-
at these rallies.
Just
Yes.
quickly finish up, because I want to move on to our next.
Yes, I
What's
will.
up, Mike
It's been
Koenigs?
totally irresponsible the way in which he has handled
Hi.
and people wearing masks, basically encourage them not to.
All right.
Ben, he's a fool on this.
If you could get the crowds, you would have done the same thing. But you can't. Nobody cares.
Gentlemen, can we move on to the
Nobody cares.
gentlemen? Can we move on to the economy?
Yes.
The
They both
economy
slowed down their interruptions, and they're
is, I
actually
think it's fair
talking
to say,
about things now.
recovering
So at least
faster
we have
than
discussion.
expected from the
Yeah.
shutdown.
Much.
Just in the second quarter,
asking about the
unemployment
economy
rate
now.
fell to 8.4% last month. The Federal Reserve says the hit to growth, which is going to be there, is not going to be nearly as big as they had expected. President Trump, you say we are in a V-shaped recovery. Vice President Biden, you say it's more of a K-shape. What difference does that mean to the American people in terms of the economy? President Trump, in this segment, you go first.
So we built the greatest economy in history. We closed it down because of the China plague. When the plague came in, we closed it down, which was very hard psychologically to do. He didn't think we should close it down, and he was wrong. And again, 2 million people would be dead now instead of still 204,000 people is too much. One person is too much. Should have never happened from China. But what happened is we closed it down, and now we're reopening, and we're doing record business. We had 10.4 million people in a 4-month period that we've put back into the workforce. That's a record the likes of which nobody's ever seen before. And he wants to close down he will shut it down again. He will destroy this country. You know, a lot of people between drugs and alcohol and depression, when you start shutting it down, you take a look at what's happening in some of your Democrat-run states where they have these tough shutdowns. And I'm telling you, it's because they don't want to open it. One of them came out last week. You saw that. Oh, we're going to open up on November 9th. Why November 9th? Because it's after the election. They think they're hurting us by keeping them closed. They're hurting people. People know what to do. They can social distance. They can wash their hands. They can wear masks. They can do whatever they want. But they got to open these states up. When you look at North Carolina, when you look, and these governors are under siege, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and a couple of others, you got to open these states up. It's not fair. You're talking about almost, it's like being in prison. And you look at what's going on with divorce, look at what's going on with alcoholism and drugs. It's a very, very sad thing. And he'll close down the whole country. This guy will close down the whole country and destroy our country. Our country is coming back incredibly well, setting records as it does it. We don't need somebody to come in and say, let's shut it down.
All right. Your 2 minutes, sir. We're now moved to you.
From a persuasion perspective,
As
that was
I
his
said,
best
posing
answer.
the question, the president.
Yeah, it really was.
Recovery, you say it's a K-shaped recovery. What's the difference?
The difference is millionaires and billionaires like him in the middle of the COVID crisis have done very well. Billionaires have made another $300 billion because of his profligate tax proposal, and he only focused on the market. But you folks at home, you folks living in Scranton and Claymont and all the small towns and working class towns in America, how well are you doing? This guy paid a total of $750 in taxes.
Sir, wait, no, sir,
Don't interrupt.
Yeah, I understand. You've agreed to the 2 minutes, so please let him have it.
I get my time back?
Vice President Biden doing right now is very
he
smart.
He has, in fact, worked on this in a way that he's going to be the first president of the United States to leave office having fewer jobs in his administration than when he became president. Fewer jobs than when he became president. First one in American history. Secondly, the people who have lost their jobs are those people who have been on the front lines, those people who have been saving our lives, those people who have been out there dying, people who've been putting themselves in a way to make sure that we could all try to make it. And the idea that he is insisting that we go forward and open when you have almost half the states in America with a significant increase in COVID deaths and COVID cases in the United States of America. And he wants to open it up more. Why does he want to open it up? Why doesn't he take care of the American? You can't fix the economy until you fix the COVID crisis. And he has no intention of doing anything about making it better for you all at home in terms of your health and your safety. Schools, why aren't schools open? Because it costs a lot of money to open them safely. You know, they were going to give his administration.
I think he should have finished his answer about 20 seconds ago.
Then they decided, no, couldn't do that because it's not a national emergency. Not a national emergency. They've done nothing to help small businesses. Nothing. They're closing. 1 in 6 is now gone. He ought to get.
Which is actually a good thing for President Trump that he.
So we can't
interrupt him.
Your time is up, sir. Well, we are going to get to.
I have to respond to that.
Well, you both had 2 minutes, sir.
Excuse me. He made a statement.
So did you.
People want their schools. No, people want their schools open. They don't want to be shut down. They don't want their state shut down. They want their restaurants. I look at New York. It's so sad what's happening in New York. It's almost like a ghost town. And I'm not sure it can ever recover what they've done in New York. People want their places open. They want to get back to their lives. They'll be careful, but they want their schools open. I'm the one that brought back football. By the way, I brought back Big Ten football. It was me, and I'm very happy to do it. And the people of Ohio are very proud of me. And you know how I found out? When he took the
we're going to get to your economic plans going forward in a moment. But first, Mr. President, as you well know, there's a new report that in 2016, the year you were elected president, and 2017, your first year as president, that you paid $750 a year in federal income tax each of those years. I know that you pay a lot of other taxes, but I'm asking you a specific question. Is it
very
you paid
$750
in federal income taxes each of those 2 years?
I paid millions of dollars in taxes, millions of dollars of income tax. And let me just tell you, there was a story in one of the papers. I paid $38 million 1 year. I paid $27 million.
Show us your tax returns.
I went, you'll see it as soon as it's finished. You'll see it. You know, if you want to go to the Board of Elections. There's a 118-page or so report that says everything I have, every bank I have, I'm totally under leveraged because the assets are extremely good. And I built a great
I'm asking you a specific question, which is.
Let me tell you.
I understand all of that. I understand all of that. No, Mr. President, I'm asking you a question. Will you tell us how much you paid in federal income taxes in 2016 and 2017?
Millions of dollars.
You paid millions of dollars?
Millions of dollars.
So
yes.
not 750.
Millions of dollars, and you'll get to see it. And you'll get to see it. But let me just tell you, Chris, let me just say something that it was the tax laws. I don't want to pay tax. Before I came here, I was a private developer. I was a private business people. Like every other private person, unless they're stupid, they go through the laws, and that's what it is. He passed a tax bill that gave us all these privileges for depreciation and for tax credits. We built a building and we get tax credits like the hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue. You get a massive, which by the way, was given to me by the Obama administration, if you can believe that. Now the man got fired right after that happened. But
Vice President Biden, you want to respond?
Yeah, I do want to respond. Look, the tax code that made him put him in a position that he pays less tax than a school teacher on the money a school teacher makes, is because of him he says he's smart because he can take advantage of the tax code. And he does take advantage of the tax code. That's why I'm going to eliminate the Trump tax cuts. And I'm going to eliminate those tax cuts and make sure that we invest in the people who, in fact, need the help. People out there need help.
But why didn't you do it over the last 25 years?
Because you weren't president. Because you weren't president screwing things up.
You were a senator. And
You're the worst president America has ever had.
Hey,
Come
Joe,
on.
let me just tell you, Joe, I've done more in 47 months. I've done more than you've done in 47 years, Joe. We've done things that you never even thought of doing, including fixing the broken military that you gave me, including taking care of your vets.
Mr. President, we're talking about the economy. I'd like to ask you about your plans going forward.
You can't.
Because, Mr. Vice President, your economic plan, if you were to be elected president, focuses a lot on big
Vice President
government,
Biden's answer on the taxes
spending.
started out well, but you
Focus
can't
first
tell
on
the
the
American
taxes.
people that you're going to raise
You
their taxes.
proposed
That
more
is
than
fundamentally one of
$1
the
over a
fastest
decade
ways
in
to
new
not get
taxes
elected. And
on
the start of the answer
individuals
was pretty
making more
good.
than
Actually, I thought, but
$400,000 a
second
year
part,
on corporations.
the president's
President
answer
Trump
wasn't all that
says
great
that
either.
that kind of
honestly.
an increase
That'll be a soundbite that gets played over and
of
over
the
and over
economy
again.
if it's just coming out of a recession.
Well, just take a look at what is the analysis done by Wall Street firms. Points out that my economic plan would create 7 million more jobs than his in 4 years, number one. And number two, it would create an additional $1 trillion in economic growth because it would be about buying American. That we're going to make this federal government spend $600 billion a year on everything from ships to steel to buildings and the like. And under my proposal, we're going to make sure that every penny of that has to be made by a company.
But respectfully, sir, I'm talking about taxes, not spending.
By the way, I'm going to eliminate a significant number of the tax. I'm going to make the corporate tax 28%. It shouldn't be 21%. You have 91 companies, in the Fortune 500 who don't pay a single penny in tax, making billions of dollars.
Why didn't you do it
billions
before when you were vice president with Obama?
Because you, in fact, passed that. That was your tax proposal.
I got it done. And you know what happened?
Yeah, you got it done.
Our economy boomed like it's never boomed.
The economy is
Mr. President, Mr. President, let me pick up on that. You would continue your free market approach, lower taxes, more deregulation, correct?
Not lower taxes for American people.
But in Obama's, you talk about the economy booming. It turns out that in Obama's final 3 years as president, more jobs were created, 1.5 million more jobs than in the first 3 years of your presidency.
They had the slowest recovery economic recovery since 1929. It was the slowest recovery. Also, they took over something that was down here. All you had to do is turn on the lights and you pick up a lot. But they had the slowest economic recovery since 1929. Let me tell you about the stock market. When the stock market goes up, that means jobs. It also means 401ks. If you got in, if you ever became president with your ideas, you want to terminate my taxes, I'll tell you what, you'll lose half of the companies that have poured in here will leave, and plenty of companies that are already here, they'll leave for other places. They will leave, and you will have a depression, the likes of which you've never seen.
Look, we inherited the worst recession short of a depression in American history. I was asked to bring it back.
He's talking about 2008, by the way.
You're talking about. We handed him a booming economy. He blew it.
It wasn't booming. It wasn't booming. It was the weakest recovery since 1929.
Is it fair to say he blew it when fact there was record low unemployment before COVID?
Yeah, but because what he did, even before COVID, manufacturing went in the hole. Manufacturing went in the hole.
Excuse me, Chris. Wait.
Number two.
Chris,
number three.
They said it would take. No, you're on number two.
No.
Chris. They said it would take a miracle to bring back manufacturing. I brought back 700,000 jobs. They brought back nothing. They gave up on manufacturing. Part of my standard fare.
I'm the guy that brought
totally
back
gave
the
up on manufacturing.
All right, let him.
We brought back. I was asked to bring back Chrysler and General Motors. We brought them back right here in the state of Ohio and Michigan. He blew it. They're gone. He blew it. And in fact, they're going.
Ohio had the best year it's ever had last year. Michigan had the best year they've ever had.
That is not
Many
true.
car companies came in from Germany, from Japan, went to Michigan, went to Ohio.
They're not having.
And they didn't come in with you.
Mr. Vice President, go ahead.
And so you take a look at what he's actually done. He's done very little. His trade deals are the same way. He talks about these great trade deals. You know, he talks about the art of the deal. China's perfected the art of the steal. We have a higher deficit with China now than we did before. We have the highest trade deficit
China
with
ate
Mexico.
your lunch, down
All right, gentlemen,
18%. China ate your lunch, Joe. And no wonder your son goes in and he takes out billions of dollars, to manage. He makes millions of dollars. And also, while we're at it, why is it, just out of curiosity, the mayor of Moscow's wife gave your son $3.5 million. What did he do to deserve it? What did he do with Burisma to deserve $183,000?
He's going to ask that question, though.
None of that is true.
Oh, really? He didn't get
Mr.
$3.5
President, President, please.
Totally discredited. Totally discredited. And by the way,
well, wait, he didn't get $3.5 million, Joe?
Mr. Vice,
he got $3.5 million.
That is not true.
Oh, really?
Mr. President, it's an open discussion, please.
It's a fact.
Well, you have raised an issue. Let's Vice President answer.
Discredited. There was a report.
Just ask the question and let him answer it.
With no experience in energy.
Mr. President,
My son did nothing wrong at Burisma.
I think he did.
Mr. President, let him answer.
He doesn't want to let me answer because he knows I have the truth. His position has been totally, thoroughly discredited.
By who?
And you
the media.
By everybody. Well, by the media, by our allies, by the World Bank, by everyone has discredited. Matter of fact, even the people who testified under oath.
So let me ask you this, Joe.
No, go ahead, Mr. I'm listening to you.
People
he got $3.5 million from Moscow.
He testified under oath, and his administration said, "I did my job and I did it very well.
Oh,
I
really?
did it
I'd
honorably."
like to know who they are.
Well, I'll give you the list of the people who testified.
No, go ahead, sir.
Sure, you've already fired most of them because they did a good job.
Some people don't do a good job. With you,
go ahead. Wait a minute. You get the final word.
Well, it's hard to get any word in with this clown. Excuse me.
Hey, let me just say, Joe.
No. I'm Mr. President.
$3.5 million, Joe.
That is simply.
Why did he deserve $3.5 million from Moscow?
Look, here's the deal. We want to talk about families and ethics. I don't want to do that. I mean, his family we could talk about all night. His family's already.
My family lost a fortune by coming down and helping us with government.
And that's such a.
Mr. President.
Every single one of them lost.
This is not about my family or his family. It's about your family. The American people. He doesn't. That's not true. It doesn't want to talk about what you need. You, the American people. It's about you. That's what we're talking about.
All right, that's the end of the segment. We're moving on.
All right.
Vice
So,
President, no.
Can I be honest?
Whoa.
Try to be honest.
He stood up.
No,
He stood up
the answer to the question is no.
Ukraine.
No, sir.
With $1 billion, if you
That is absolutely
you know what,
not
stop.
true.
You're going to have
true.
Gentlemen, I hate to lose my voice, but it seems to be, why shouldn't I be different than the two of you? We have next segment. We have ended that segment. We're going to go to the next segment. In that segment, you each are going to have 2 uninterrupted moments. In those 2 uninterrupted minutes, Mr. President, you can say anything you want. I'm going to ask a question about race.
Okay, Chris Wallace, I'm going to pause this real quick. Or just Chris Wallace is doing what he has to do.
Yeah.
The president's not letting the vice president talk, but they're doing it back to each other as well. The most powerful thing the vice president just did is look at the camera and say, "You, the American people." And I think if either one of them could do that, well, they would get through. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree. He did it back when he was talking about, oh gosh, I wrote down this note, when he painted the picture talking about the American people with COVID. He actually painted that picture because there's so many American people who have family members that have had COVID or that have lost their lives to COVID. So he spoke directly to them, which was very, very powerful.
Most powerful word in persuasion is the word "you," the singular word "you." So just write that down. We're talking about this from a communication perspective, and we'll go back to Chris Wallace. Poor Chris Wallace's question.
Poor Chris.
In this country over the next 4 years, Vice President Biden, you go first.
It's about equity inequality. It's about decency. It's about the Constitution. And we have never walked away from trying to require equity for everyone, equality for the whole of America. But we've never accomplished it. But we've never walked away from it like he has done. It is true. The reason I got in the race is when those people, close your eyes, remember what those people look like coming out of the fields carrying torches, their veins bulging, just spewing anti-Semitic bile, and accompanied by the Ku Klux Klan. A young woman got killed. And they asked the president what he thought. He said there were very fine people on both sides. No president's ever said anything like that.
It is his
now,
2
second,
minutes, sir.
Second point I'd make to you is that when Floyd was killed, when Mr. Floyd was killed, there was a peaceful protest in front of the White House. What did he do? He came out of his bunker, had the military use tear gas on him so he could walk across to a church and hold up a Bible. And then what happened after that? The bishop of that very church said that it was a disgrace. The general who was with him said all he ever wants to do is divide people, not unite people at all. This is a president who has used everything as a dog whistle to try to generate racist hatred, racist division. This is a man who, in fact, you talk about helping African Americans. 1 in 1,000 African Americans has been killed because of the coronavirus. And if he doesn't do something quickly, by the end of the year, 1 in 500 will have been killed. 1 in 500 African Americans. This man is a savior of African Americans. This man cares at all. This man's done virtually nothing. Look, the fact is that you have to look at what he talks about.
He's right about that,
You have to look
man.
at what he did. And what he did has been disastrous for the African American community.
So,
President Trump, you have 2 minutes. Why should Americans trust you over your opponent to deal with
he
racism?
did a crime bill, 1994, where you call them super predators, African Americans, super predators, and they've never forgotten it. They've never forgotten it, Joe.
No, sir. It's his 2 minutes.
So you did that, and they call you a super predator, and I'm letting people out of jail now that you have treated the African American population community, you have treated the black community about as bad as anybody in this country. You did the 1990, and that's why, if you look at the polls, I'm doing better than any Republican has done in a long time, because they saw what you did. You call them super predators, and you've called them worse than that, because you look back at your testimony over the years, you've called them a lot worse than that. As far as the church is concerned, and as far as the generals are concerned, we just got the support of 250 military leaders and generals, total support. Law enforcement, almost every law enforcement group in the United States. I have Florida, I have Texas, I have Ohio, I have Portland. The sheriff just came out today and he said, I support President Trump. I don't think you have any law enforcement. You can't even say the word law enforcement, because if you say those words, you're going to lose all of your radical left supporters. And why aren't you saying those words, Joe? Why don't you say the words law enforcement? Because you know what? If they called us in Portland, we would put out that fire in a half an hour, but they won't do it because they're run by radical left Democrats. If you look at Chicago, if you look at any place you want to look, Seattle, they heard we were coming in the following day and they put up their hands and we got back Seattle. Minneapolis, we got it back, Joe, because we believe in law and order, but you don't. The top 10 cities and just about the top 40 cities are run by Democrats and in many cases radical left. And they've got you wrapped around their finger, Joe, to a point where you don't want to say anything about law and order. And I'll tell you what, the people of this country want and demand law and order, and you're afraid to even say it.
All right.
That's his best answer.
I want to return to the question of race. Vice President Biden, after the grand jury in the Breonna Taylor case decided not to charge any of the police with homicide, you said it raises the question, quote, whether justice could be equally applied in America. Do you believe that there is a separate but unequal system of justice for blacks in this country?
Yes, there is. There's systemic injustice in this country, in education and work and in law enforcement and the way in which it's enforced. But look, the vast majority of police officers are good, decent, honorable men and women. They risk their lives every day to take care of us. But there are some bad apples. And when they occur, when they find them, they have to be sorted out. They have to be held accountable. They have to be held accountable. And what I'm going to do as President of the United States is call together an entire group of people at the White House, well, everything from the civil rights groups to the police officers, to the police chiefs, and we're going to work this out. We're going to work this out so we change the way in which we have more transparency in when these things happen. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to George Floyd. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to Breonna Taylor. Most don't like it, but we have to have a system where people are held accountable. And by the way, violence in response is never appropriate. Never appropriate. Peaceful protest is. Violence is never appropriate.
All right.
What is peaceful protest? When they run through the middle of a town and burn down your stores and kill people all over the place,
that
and you
is
say
not
peaceful
peaceful
protest?
President Trump,
No, it's
I'm not
not,
asking-
but you say it is.
President Trump, I'd like to continue with the
Yes,
issue
go
of
ahead,
race. I
please.
promise we're going to get to the issue of law and order in a moment. This month, your administration directed federal agencies to end racial sensitivity training that addresses white privilege or critical race theory. Why did you decide to do that, to end racial sensitivity training? And
very
do you
important
believe
question.
that there is systemic
Extremely
racism?
important.
I ended it because it's racist. I ended it because a lot of people were complaining that they were asked to do things that were absolutely insane, that it was a radical revolution that was taking place in our military, in our schools, all over the place, and you know it, and so does everybody
what
else.
is radical,
and he would know.
What is
Oh, it was
radical
totally
about
racist.
racial sensitivity training? Sir?
If you were a certain person, you had no status in life. It was sort of a reversal. And if you look at the people, we were paying people hundreds of thousands of dollars to teach very bad ideas and frankly, very sick ideas. And really, they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to allow that to happen. We have to go back to the core values of this country. They were teaching people that our country is a horrible place, it's a racist place, and they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to allow that to happen.
Vice President Biden?
Nobody's doing that. He's the racist.
The problem
Here's
with
the
his
deal. I
answer
know a lot more about
You
this.
know,
than you
is
do.
Let
if
him
you
finish.
already think that the presidents are
The fact
racist,
is
he didn't
there
convince
is
you otherwise.
racial insensitivity. People have to be made aware of what other people feel like, what insults them, what is demeaning to them. It's important to people know they don't want to. Many people don't want to hurt other people's feelings, but it makes a big difference. It makes a gigantic difference in the way a child is able to grow up and have a sense of self-esteem. It's a little bit like how this guy and his friends look down on so many people. They look down their nose on people like Irish Catholics like me and grew up in Scranton. They look down on people who don't have money. They look down on people who are of a different faith. They look down on people who are a different color. In fact, we're all Americans. The only way we're going to bring this country together is bring everybody together. There's nothing we cannot do if we do it together. We can take this on and we can defeat racism
Vice
in America.
President
he
Trump,
looked-
During the Obama
And the camera.
and looked at the
administration, there
camera,
was tremendous
it
division.
would be a home
There
run
was
answer
hatred.
for him.
You look at Ferguson, you go to very many places. Look at Oakland. Look what happened in Oakland. Look what happened in Baltimore. Look what happened. Frankly, it was more violent than what I'm even seeing now.
Oh, my
But the
Lord.
reason
This
is that
ridiculous.
the Democrats that run these
Absolutely
cities
ridiculous.
don't want to talk like you about law and order.
Violent
And you
crime,
still haven't mentioned.
violent
Are you in
crime.
favor of law and order?
I'm in favor of law. You follow
Are you in
it and a little
favor
bit
of law and order? Go
Yes, I'm
ahead.
in
say
favor.
it.
you
Everybody's
asked a
in favor
question,
of
let him finish.
law and order.
Loses
Law and order.
Let him
Law and order with justice where people get treated fairly. And the fact of the matter is violent crime went down 15% in our administration.
All right.
It's gone up on his watch.
Went down
He-
much more
he
than
had-
ours.
All right, we're
He
not.
is
You're,
president of
Mr.
the
President,
United
you're going
States
to.
of America.
Mr. President,
every record in the
Mr.
book.
President, you're going to be very happy because we're now going to talk about law and order.
Places we had trouble. We're Democratic-run cities.
That's
and
exactly
those
my question.
Democratic-
There has been a dramatic increase in homicides in America this summer, particularly, and you often blame that on Democratic mayors and Democratic governors, but in fact, there have been equivalent spikes in Republican-led
He's right
cities
about
like
that.
Tulsa and
Yep.
Florida. So the question is this really a party issue?
Dr. Bragg.
I think it's a party. We're bringing a couple of examples, but if you look at Chicago, what's going on in Chicago, where 53 people were shot and 8 died shot. If you look at New York, where it's going up like nobody's ever seen anything, the numbers are going up 100, 150, 200%. crime. It is crazy what's going on. And he doesn't want to say law and order because he can't, because he'll lose his radical left supporters. And once he does that, it's over with. But if he ever got to run this country and they ran it the way he would want to run it, our suburbs would be gone. By the way, our suburbs would be gone. And you would see problems like you've never seen.
He wouldn't know a suburb unless he took a wrong turn.
Oh, I know suburbs.
He would not.
So
I was raised in the suburbs. This is not 1950. All these dog whistles and racism don't work
I think the president is talking to Chris Wallace, and Biden is talking to the crowd from their angles. And if either one of them would look into the camera and talk to the people, they'd be
in the same car as there has been any time in the past. What really is a threat to the suburbs and their safety is his failure to deal with COVID. They're dying in the suburbs. His failure to deal with the environment. They're being flooded. They're being burned out because his refusal to do anything. That's why the suburbs are in trouble.
I do want to talk about this issue of law and order, though. And in the joint recommendation that came from the Biden-Bernie Sanders task force, you talked about, quote, reimagining policing. First of all, what does reimagining policing mean? And do you support...
I think Chris Wallace is asking fair questions to both of you.
Yeah, that's a really good question.
And do you support the Black Lives Matter call for...
I think Vice President Biden's done a pretty good job so far. I think his answer is starting to get a little choppy, and I wonder how he's doing
with the problems they face.
Yeah,
I'm totally opposed to defunding the police officers. As a matter of fact, local police, the only one defunding it, his budget calls for a $400 million cut in local law enforcement assistance.
I think your
they need more assistance. They need, when they show up for a 9/11 call, to have someone with them as a psychologist or psychiatrist. From having to use force and be able to talk people down. We have to have community policing like we had before.
There's a
where
crowd.
The officers get to know the people.
There's about 40 people there.
That crime went down. It didn't go up. It went down. And so we have to be engaged.
That's not what they're talking about, Chris. That's not what he's talking about. Defunding the police.
That is not true.
He doesn't have any law.
David,
he has no law enforcement.
That's not true.
Almost nothing. Look, who do you have? Name one group that supports you. Name one group that came out and supported you. Go ahead. Think. We have time.
We don't have time to do anything.
Think about it. Name one law enforcement group that came out and supported you.
Gentlemen, I think I'm going to take back the moderator's
I don't think there are any.
and I want to to another subject, which is the issue of protests in many cities that have turned violent. In Portland, Oregon, especially, we had more than 100 straight days of protests, which I think you would agree. You talk about peaceful protests. Many of those turned into riots. Mr. Vice President, you say that people who commit crimes should be held accountable. The question I have, though, is as the Democratic nominee, and earlier tonight you said that you are the Democratic Party right now, have you ever called the Democratic mayor of Portland or the Democratic governor of Oregon and said, hey, you got to stop this, bring in the National Guard, do whatever it takes, but you'd stop the days and months of violence in Portland?
I don't hold public office now. I am a former vice president. I've made it clear.
Come on, man.
I've made it clear in my public statement that the violence should be prosecuted. It should be prosecuted. And anyone who commits it
should never called for the people, the leader.
Yeah, he did.
You had never called for the leaders in Portland and in Oregon to call and bring in the National Guard and knock off 100
It's a good question.
They can, in fact, take care of it if he just stay out of the way. Look here.
Oh, really?
Oh,
really?
Just let him answer the question. He's about to throw his own grenade.
Yes. Silence is powerful.
For 3 days,
President Trump
Portland wouldn't do anything. I had to send in the U.S. Marshals. They took care of business.
Go ahead, sir.
And by the way, his own former spokesperson said, riots and chaos and violence help his cause. That's what this is all about.
I don't know who said that.
I do.
Who?
I think Kellyanne Conway.
I don't think she said that.
She said that. And so here's the point. The point is that's what he is, keeps trying to rile everything up. He doesn't want to calm things down. Instead of going in and talking to people and saying, let's get everybody together, figure out how to deal with this. What's he do? He just pours gasoline in the fire constantly, and every single solitary time.
And to button up this segment. I'm going to give you a minute to answer, sir. You have repeatedly criticized.
I have to answer his statement.
No, you have
His
repeatedly.
statement. Wait,
you have
just 1
No,
second.
you've been talking
He
back
made
and
a
forth.
statement.
I'm asking you.
I would love to end it.
Sir,
I would love to end it. and
you know,
we
if
would
you want to
very-
switch,
I think
seats,
we would very quickly.
We can do that, but
Like,
I'm
send
no.
it
I think we should all take a shot every time one of the candidates says, "I didn't say that." We would be drunk in like 15 minutes.
Oh my goodness.
Back to you, Chris Wallace. Okay.
Mhm.
Condemn white supremacists and militia groups,
Sure.
and to say that they need to stand down and not add.
It's a
the
fair
violence in a
question
number
because
of
he
these
asked
cities, as
Vice
we saw
President
in
about
Kenosha,
condemning
and as
violence in
we've seen in
Portland.
Sure,
And he
I'm
asked
willing to do
President-
that,
Specifically,
but
do it. Well,
I
go
would
ahead,
say
sir.
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right
So
wing.
what are you
If
saying?
I'm
So
willing
just
to do
condemn
anything. I
white-
want to see
white
peace.
Then do
supremacy.
it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it. You want to call him? What do you want to call him? Give me a name. Give me a
White
name. Go
supremacists
ahead.
and
Who would
white
you like me to condemn?
White supremacists and right
Proud
militia.
Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem.
His
This
own
is a left-wing.
FBI director.
This
said
is a
the
left-wing
President Trump
problem.
called white
Go ahead, sir.
supremacists. Antifa's an idea, not an
The first
organization.
5 minutes.
Listen, that's what his
It's an idea.
FBI, his
Okay.
FBI director
You know-
said.
Well,
We're
then
gonna-
you know what?
no,
He's
no,
wrong.
The
we're
Vice
done,
President
sir.
could have just
We're
let
moving
the
on to
president
next
fall on
one.
his sword there.
Right, Joe, the
But instead
hashtag's
said
not an idea.
Antifa's an idea.
Your
Antifa is
administration tells you the truth is a bad idea.
Can I tell you what?
You have no idea.
Antifa is a dangerous
All right,
radical
gentlemen, we're
group.
now moving on to the
You gotta be
Biden
careful with
records.
them. They'll overthrow you.
So-
When a president, I'm
The
gonna
president
ask-
had a chance to denounce white supremacy and he didn't say anything.
He did not say it.
But then I think the vice president should just let him start talking. Next thing you know, he's talking about Antifa, and now they're both defending their radical ends, which is or not. They appear to be defending their radical ends, which is what neither one of them wants to do. It doesn't make
Yeah.
sense.
And if one would just be quiet and let the other one talk, then they could talk themselves.
And they really would. They really
Yeah.
would. This is super
Yeah.
interesting. Here we go.
Mhm.
2 minutes.
Because there has never been an administration or president who has done more than I've done in a period of 3.5 years. And that's despite the impeachment hoax. And you saw what happened today with Hillary Clinton, where it was a whole big con job. But despite going through all of these things where I had to fight both flanks and behind me and above, there has never been an administration that's done what I've done. The greatest, before COVID came in, the greatest economy in history, lowest unemployment numbers. Everything was good. Everything was going. And by the way, there was unity going to happen. People were
I would actually
calling me
like to
for the
see Joe
first
Rogan
time
ask
in
these
years. They were
questions.
calling.
Oh,
and
yeah.
they were saying, it's time, baby. And then what happened? We got hit, but now we're building it back up again. A rebuilding of the military, including Space Force and all of the other things. A fixing of the VA, which was a mess under him. 308,000 people died because they didn't have proper health care. It was a mess. And we now got a 91% approval rating at the VA, our vets. We take care of our vets. But we've rebuilt our military. The job that we've done, and I'll tell you some people say maybe the most important. By the end of the first term, I'll have approximately 300 federal judges and Court of Appeals judges, 300, and hopefully 3 great Supreme Court justices. That is a record, the likes of which very few people, and you know one of the reasons I'll have so many judges? Because
I
President Obama and him,
That's a good point, Harisha.
128
Point.
judges to fill. When you leave office, you don't leave any judges. That's like, you just don't do that. They left 128 openings. And if I were a member of his party, because they have a little different philosophy, I'd say if you left us 128 openings, you can't be a good president. You can't be a good vice president. But I want to thank you because it gives us it'll probably be above that number by the end of this term.
Time, sir.
300 judges. It's a record.
Looking at both your records, why should voters elect you president as opposed to President Trump? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Under this president, we become weaker,
Excuse me.
poorer, more divided, and more violent.
The camera,
When I was
I
Vice
agree,
President.
man.
we inherited a
especially
recession.
for this part.
We had to fix it.
It's got a red light on
left
it.
him a booming economy,
Yeah.
and he caused the recession. With regard to being weaker, the fact is that I've gone head to head with Putin and made it clear to him we're not going to take any of his.
Hold on.
No way.
Don't you worry. I'm still there. Hold on. Here we go.
It's uninterrupted. Well, your side agreed to it.
There we go.
Why don't you observe what your campaign agreed to as a ground rule, okay, sir?
He never keeps his word. Can you add back
No, I'm not asking. That was a rhetorical question. Go ahead, sir.
We're back. You hear this, right?
Yes, you may have.
All right.
Go ahead.
So
It jumped forward like 30 seconds, but we're all cool.
billionaires have gotten
We already know what he was saying.
much more wealthy by a tune of over $300 to $400 billion more just since COVID. You in the home, you got
Jeff, you may have misunderstood what I said, pal. So stick around to the end because we can clarify what you think.
When we were in office, there were 15% less violence in America than there is today. He's president of the United States. It's on his watch. And with regard to more divided, the nation can't stay divided. We can't be this way.
Let me just answer this since it was brought up here.
The military,
My point was they both had an opportunity on one side to denounce white supremacy, on the other side to denounce Antifa, and neither one of them did. So that was my
was in Iraq. He spent a year there.
It was a miss on both sides.
He got the Bronze Star. He got the Conspicuous Service Medal. He was not a loser. He was a patriot, and the people left behind there were heroes.
Really?
And I resent.
Are you talking
like
about Hunter? Are you talking about Hunter?
I'm talking about my son, Bo Biden. You're talking about.
I don't know, Bo. I know Hunter.
Yeah,
Hunter
you know,
got
Bo.
thrown. Hunter got thrown out of the military. He was thrown out, dishonorably discharged.
That's not true. He
for
wasn't dishonorably.
cocaine use.
He was.
And he didn't have a job
Yep.
until you became vice president. Once you
None of
became
that
vice
is
president, he made a fortune in Ukraine, in China, in Moscow,
That is simply
and various
not
other places.
true.
He
My
made a
son-
fortune,
My son,
and he didn't have a job.
my son, like a lot of people we know at home, had a drug problem.
There we go.
He's fixed it. He's worked on it, and I'm proud of him.
But why
I'm
was he
proud of
given
my
tens
son.
of millions
All
of
right.
But he
dollars?
wasn't given
All right.
tens of
He
millions
was
of dollars.
given
That
tens
is
of
totally,
millions of
that's
President
totally,
President
this is
Trump,
credited.
we've already
Totally discredited.
Well, we've already been through this. I think the American people would rather hear about more substantial
So do I.
subjects. Well, as the moderator, sir, I'm going to make
I know,
a
but when
judgment
somebody
call here.
gets $3.5 million
Okay,
from
right.
the
Let's
mayor
talk
of
about-
Moscow.
let's talk
That is
about-
not
I think
true.
it's a
Gentlemen,
That
terrible thing.
report is totally
Why did he get
discredited.
it?
I
Mitt
think,
Romney on that committee said it wasn't worth taxpayers' money. That report was written for political reasons.
I'd like to talk about climate change.
So would I.
Okay. The forest fires in the West are raging now. They have burned millions of acres. They have displaced hundreds of thousands of people. When state officials there blame the fires on climate change, Mr. President, you said, I don't think the science knows. Over your 4 years, you have pulled the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Accord. You have rolled back a number of Obama environmental records. What do you believe about the science of climate change, and what will you do in the next 4 years to confront it?
I want crystal clean water and air. I want beautiful clean air. We have now the lowest carbon. If you look at our numbers right now, we are doing phenomenally. But I haven't destroyed our businesses. Our businesses aren't put out of commission. If you look at the Paris Accord, it was a disaster from our standpoint. And people are actually very happy about what's going on because our businesses are doing well. As far as the fires are concerned, you need forest management in addition to everything else. The forest floors are loaded up with trees, dead trees that are years old, and they're like tinder, and leaves and everything else. You drop a cigarette in there, the whole forest burns down. You've got to have forest management.
What do you
You've got to have
believe?
guts.
What do you believe about the science of climate change?
I believe that we have to do everything we can to have immaculate air, immaculate water, and do whatever else we can that's good. We're planting 1 billion trees, the Billion Tree Project, and it's very
Do you
exciting
believe
for a lot of people.
that human pollution, greenhouse gas emissions contributes to the global warming of
I
this
think
planet?
a lot of things do, but I think to an extent, yes. But I also think we have to do better management of our forests. Every year, I get the call, California's burning. If that was cleaned, if you had forest management, good forest management, you wouldn't be getting those calls. In Europe, they live their forest cities. They're called forest cities. They maintain their forests. They manage their forests. I was with the head of a major country. It's a forest city. He said, sir, we have trees that are far more, they ignite much easier than California. There shouldn't be that problem. I spoke with the governor about it. I'm getting along very well with the governor. But I said, at some point, you can't every year have hundreds of thousands of acres of land just burned to the ground.
But, sir,
That's burning down because of a lack of
But
management.
sir, if you believe in the science of climate change, why have you rolled back the Obama Clean Power Plan, which limited carbon emissions in power plants? Why have you relaxed?
Because it was driving energy prices through the sky.
Why have you relaxed fuel economy standards that are going to create more pollution from cars
Well,
and
not
trucks?
really, because what's happening is the car is much less expensive and it's a much safer car. And you're talking about a tiny difference. And then what would happen, because of the cost of the car, you would have at least double and triple the number of cars purchased. We have the old slugs out there that are 10, 12 years old. If you did that, the car would be safer. It would be much cheaper by $3,500.
In the case of California, they've simply
No,
ignored
but you would take a lot of cars
rollback.
off the market because people would be able to afford a car. Now, and by the way, we're going to see how that turns out. But a lot of people agree with me, many people. The car has gotten so expensive because they have computers all over the place for an extra little bit of gasoline. And and I'm okay with electric cars too. I think I'm all for electric cars. I've given big incentives for electric cars. But what they've done in California is just crazy.
Vice President Biden, I'd like you to respond to the president's climate change record, but I also want to ask you about a concern. You proposed $2 trillion in green jobs. You talk about new limits, not abolishing, but new limits on fracking, ending the use of fossil fuels to generate electricity by 2035, and zero net emission of greenhouse gases by 2050. The president says a lot of these things would tank the economy and cost millions of jobs.
He's absolutely wrong, number one. Number two, if in fact, during our administration, the Recovery Act, I was in charge, able to bring down the cost of renewable energy to cheaper than or as cheap as coal and gas and oil. Nobody's going to build another coal-fired plant in America. No one's going to build another oil-fired plant. We're going to move to renewable energy, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that we are able to take the federal fleet and turn it into a fleet that's run on their electric vehicles. Making sure that we can do that, we're going to put 500,000 charging stations and all of the highways that we're going to be building in the future. We're going to build an economy that, in fact, is going to provide for the ability us to take 4 million buildings and make sure that they, in fact, are weatherized in a way that, in fact, they'll emit significantly less gas and oil because the heat will not be going out. There's so many things that we can do now to create thousands and thousands of jobs. We can get to net zero in terms of energy production by 2035. Not only not costing people jobs, creating millions of good paying jobs, not $15 an hour, but prevailing wage, by having a new infrastructure that in fact is green. And the first thing I will do, I will rejoin the Paris Accord. I will join the Paris Accord because with us out of it, look what's happening. It's all falling apart. And talk about someone who has no relationship with foreign policy. Brazil, the rainforests of Brazil are being torn down, are being ripped down. More carbon is absorbed in that rainforest than every bit of carbon that's emitted in the United States. Instead of doing something about that, I would be gathering up and making sure we had the countries of the world coming up with $20 billion and say, here's $20 billion. Stop tearing down the forest. And if you don't, then you're going to have significant economic consequences.
What about the argument that President Trump basically says that you have to balance environmental interests and economic interests, and he's drawn his line?
Well, he hadn't drawn a line. He still, for example, he wants to make sure that methane's not a problem. You can now emit more methane without it being a problem. Methane. This is a guy who says that you don't have to have mileage standards for automobiles that exist now. This is the guy who says that, well, the fact that it's all true. And here's the deal.
He's talking about the Green New Deal, and it's not $2 billion or $20 billion, as you said. It's $100 trillion.
I'm talking about
where they want to rip down buildings and rebuild the building.
No,
it's the dumbest, most ridiculous. Where airplanes are out of business, where two-car systems are out, where they want to take out the cows too. That's not true either, right? This is a 100 trillion. That's more money than our country could make In
That is
100
simply
years, if we're
not
going by
the case.
All right, let me, because I actually, wait a minute, sir. I actually have studied your plan, and it includes upgrading 4 million buildings, weatherizing 2 million homes over 4 years, building 1.5 million energy efficient homes. So the question becomes, the president is saying, I think some people who support the president would say that sounds like it's going to cost a lot of money and hurt the economy.
What it's going to do, it's going to create thousands and millions of jobs, good paying jobs.
But let him finish, sir.
He doesn't know how to do that.
$100 billion.
The fact is, it's going to create millions of good paying jobs, and these tax incentives to people for people to weatherize, which he wants to get rid of. It's going to make the economy much safer. Look how much we're paying now to deal with the hurricanes.
So let's just do this. I think we're in a little bit of a lull in the answers. If something amazing happens here, we'll come back to it. But I thought it would be good just to take about a minute real quick to just do a quick recap of like the first half, the big wins and losses. What do you think so far, Marquetta, on your end?
Oh man, the biggest issue that I see, I think silence is powerful. Silence is very, very powerful, no matter what side of the coin you're on, and allowing the opponent to finish a sentence is very, very powerful, because it allows you to gather your thoughts, so that when you do rebut or when you do have something to say, you have thought it out and you understand exactly what they mean. So and it's a respect thing too. To see this and to see them interrupting each other, even though President Trump is doing most of the interrupting, it's a respect thing. It shows that there's a lack of respect there, which in the eyes of the people who are voting, could be detrimental to both of them. They have no.
I mean, if you look at the screen right now, this is what they're doing, the same thing that we were just talking about. You're not missing anything because they're just talking over each other. Literally, you can look at both of them talking at the same time. I think you're 100% right. I think the biggest moment of the debate so far was, so the president has people on one side view the president as fundamentally being a racist. On the other side, people view Joe Biden as a person who supports the radical fringe of his side, which is Antifa. And both of them, I don't think either one of them necessarily agree with their right 3% or their left 3%, but both of them had an opportunity to disavow themselves from that, and they didn't. And I can't figure out why.
Not. That's crazy.
Both of them. I mean, literally. So what you end up with is this stream of social media comments, which you're going to see for the next 2 weeks, about, see, I told you so. See, Trump's a racist. See, Biden's a domestic terrorist or whatever. So I think they both blew it on that one. Honestly, I think if you came into it believing that, you're going to leave believing that. So the last thing I wrote down was, I wish they would talk to the camera. Like I said, if you can just speak directly to the American people and connect by using the word you, you're going to be in really good shape. And really, those are my first three big takeaways from the first half.
Yeah, and then I also want to point out, in the very, very, very beginning, when the topic was supposed to be about the Supreme Court, Vice President Biden shifted the conversation to talk about healthcare. And then they went down that rabbit hole, and then it was a whole big thing. But I feel like the reason why he did that is because he had a lot of ammo there to come out shooting first, to start winning, so that he can then just take that and carry it on. But I don't think it worked as well as he thought it would.
Let's see how this goes into the second half. Again, we'll jump in here and there. I just saw a lull here in the debate. And then I thought I saw maybe the vice president's answers start to get jumbled, but then he got it back in this last discussion.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens on the rest of these. All right, let's go back to the debate.
Because of COVID, that are going to be voting by mail-in ballot.
This is mail voting we're talking about now.
He sits behind the Resolute desk and sends his ballot to Florida, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that those people who want to vote in person are able to vote, because enough poll watchers are there to make sure they can socially distance. The polls are open on time, and the polls stay open until the votes are counted. And this is all about trying to dissuade people from voting, because he's trying to scare people into thinking that it's not going to be legitimate. Show up and vote. You will determine the outcome of this election. Vote.
That's what I'm talking about.
If you're able to vote
you
early,
can talk to the camera, you're going to be in good shape.
If you're able to vote in person, vote in person, vote whatever way is the best way for you, because he cannot stop you from being able to determine the outcome of this election. And in terms of whether or not when the votes are counted and they're all counted, that will be accepted. If I win, that will be accepted. If I lose, that'll be accepted. But by the way, if in fact he says he's not sure what he's going to accept, well, let me tell you something. It doesn't matter, because if we get the votes, it's going to be all over. He's going to go. He can't stay in power. It won't happen. It won't happen. So vote. Just make sure you understand you have it in your control to determine what this country is going to look like the next 4 years. Is it going to change? Or you get 4 more years of these lies?
Mr. President, 2 minutes.
So when I listened to Joe talking about a transition, there's been no transition from when I won. I won that election. And if you look at crooked Hillary Clinton, if you look at all of the different people, there was no transition, because they came after me trying to do a coup. They came after me spying on my campaign. They started from the day I won, and even before I won, from the day I came down the escalator with our First Lady. They were a disaster. They were a disgrace to our country. And we've caught them. We've caught them all. We've got it all on tape. We've caught them all. And by the way, you gave the idea for the Logan Act against General Flynn. You better take a look at that, because we caught you in a sense. And President Obama was sitting in the office. He knew about it too. So don't tell me about a free transition. As far as the ballots are concerned, it's a disaster. A solicited ballot, okay, solicited is okay. You're soliciting, you're asking, they send it back, you send it back. I did that. If you have an unsolicited, they're sending millions of ballots all over the country. There's fraud. They found them in creeks. They found some with the name Trump, just happened to have the name Trump just the other day in a waste paper basket. They're being sent all over the place. They sent 2 in a Democrat area. They sent out 1,000 ballots. Everybody got 2 ballots. This is going to be a fraud like you've never seen. The other thing, it's nice on November 3rd, you're watching and you see who won the election. And I think we're going to do well, because people are really happy with the job we've done. But you know what? We won't know. We might not know for months, because these ballots are going to be all over. Take a look at what happened in Manhattan. Take a look at what happened in New Jersey. Take a look at what happened in Virginia and other places. They're not losing 2%, 1%, which, by the way, is too much. An election could be won or lost with that. They're losing 30 and 40%. It's a fraud, and it's a shame. And can you imagine where they say you have to have your ballot in by November 10th? November 10th. That means that's 7 days after the election, in theory, should have been announced.
Okay.
We have major states with that,
sir,
all run by
2
Democrats.
minutes is 2 minutes.
All run by Democrats. It's
President
a
Trump,
it's a rigged election.
you're going to be able to continue. You have been charging for months that mail-in balloting is going to be a disaster. You say it's rigged, that it's going to lead to fraud. But in 2018, in the last midterm election, 31 million people voted mail-in voting. That was a quarter, more than a quarter of all the voters that year cast their ballots by mail. Now that millions of mail-in ballots have gone out, what are you going to do about it? And are you counting on the Supreme Court, including a Justice Barrett, to settle any dispute?
Yeah, I think I'm counting on them to look at the ballots, definitely. I don't think I hope we don't need them in terms of the election itself. But for the ballots, I think so. Because what's happening is incredible. I read today, where at least 1% of the ballots for 2016 were invalidated. They take them, we don't like them, we don't like them.
But what are you going to do about it? If there are millions of ballots going out right now,
what you do is you go and vote. You do a solicited ballot, and that's okay, or you go and vote.
I'm asking you about the fact that millions of people...
You go and vote. You go and vote,
like they
used to in the old.
Millions of people.
You either do, Chris, a solicited ballot where you're sending it in, they're sending it back, and you're sending. They have mailmen with lots of it. Did you see what's going on? Take a look at West Virginia. Mailmen selling the ballots. They're being sold. They're being dumped in rivers. This is a horrible thing for our country. This is not going to end well.
There is no evidence.
This is not going to end well.
5 states have had mail-in ballots for the last decade or more. 5, including 2 Republican states. And you don't have to solicit the ballot. It's sent to you. It's sent to your home. What they're saying is that it has to be a postmark by the time by election day. If it doesn't get in till the 7th, 8th, 9th, it still should be counted. He's just afraid of counting the votes because he knows
You're
the
wrong.
outcome.
You're wrong.
I want to continue with you on this, Vice President Biden.
Chris, he's so wrong when he makes a statement like that.
Excuse me, Vice President Biden. The biggest problem, in fact, over the years with mail-in voting has not been fraud historically. It has been that sizable numbers, sometimes hundreds of thousands of ballots are thrown out because they have not been properly filled out, or there is some other irregularity, or they missed the deadline. So the question I have is, are you concerned that the Supreme Court with a Justice Barrett will settle any dispute?
I'm concerned that any court would settle this because here's the deal. When you get a ballot and you fill it out, you're supposed to have an affidavit. If you didn't know, you have someone say that this is me. You should be able to, if in fact you can verify that's you before the ballot is thrown out, that's sufficient to be able to count the ballot because someone made a mistake and not dotting the correct I. Who they voted for, testify, say who they voted for, say it's you. That is totally legitimate.
All right.
Excuse me, when you have 80 million ballots,
I have a final
Senate
question.
and swamping the system, you know it can't be done. You know it can't, and already there's been
so now
fraud.
Mail service delivers
wait a minute, gentlemen. Final question is: in 8 states, we can keep talking. In 8 states, election workers are prohibited currently by law. 8 states from even beginning to process ballots, even take them out of the envelopes and flatten them until election day. That means that it's likely, because there's going to be a huge increase in mail-in balloting, that we are not going to know on election night who the winner is, that it could be days, it could be weeks,
could be months,
until we find out who the new president is. So first for you, sir, finally for the vice president, I hope neither of you will interrupt the other. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm during this extended period, not to engage in any civil unrest, and will you pledge tonight that you will not declare victory until the election has been independently certified? President Trump, you go first.
I'm urging my supporters to go into the polls and watch very carefully, because that's what has to happen. I am urging them to do it. As you know, today there was a big problem. In Philadelphia, they went in to watch. They're called poll watchers, a very safe, very nice thing. They were thrown out. They weren't allowed to watch. You know why? Because bad things happen in Philadelphia, bad things. And I am urging my people. I hope it's going to be a fair election. If it's a fair election, I am 100% on board. But if I see tens of thousands of ballots being manipulated, I can't go along with that. And I'll tell you what, from a common sense,
does that mean you're going to tell your people to take to the street?
It means you have a fraudulent election. You're sending out 80 million ballots. They're not equipped to. These people aren't equipped to handle it, number one. Number two, they cheat. They cheat. Hey, they found ballots in a waste paper basket 3 days ago, and they all had the name military ballots. They were military. They all had the name Trump on them.
Vice President
you think
Biden,
that's good?
Vice President Biden, final question for you. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm while the vote is counted?
Coming down the home stretch. Hang out with us. We're going to do a little post-event commentary.
Is independently certified.
Yes. Here's the deal. They count the ballots, as you pointed out. Some of these ballots in some states can't even be opened until election day. And if there's thousands of ballots, it's going to take time to do it. And by the way, our military, they've been voting by ballots since the end of the Civil War, in effect. And that's what's going to happen. Why was it not? Why is it for them somehow not fraudulent? It's the same process. It's honest. No one has established at all that there is fraud related to mail-in ballots, that somehow it's a fraudulent process.
It's already been established. Take a look at Carolyn Maloney's race.
You had an opportunity to respond.
Look at Carolyn Maloney.
Go ahead.
They have no idea what happened.
Vice President Biden, go ahead.
He has no idea what he's talking about. Here's the deal. The fact is, I will accept it, and he will too. You know why? Because once the winner is declared, after all the ballots are counted, all the votes are counted, that'll be the end of it. That'll be the end of it. And if it's me, in fact, fine. If it's not me, I'll support the outcome. And I'll be a president, not just for the Democrats. I'll be a president for Democrats and Republicans. And this guy,
I want to see an honest ballot count.
Gentlemen, you say that's the end of it? This is the end of this debate?
We're
going to leave it there. To be continued as in more debates as we go on. President Trump, Vice President Biden, it's been an interesting hour and a half. I want to thank you both for participating.
Whoa.
You have agreed to engage in. We want to thank Case Western Reserve University and the Cleveland Clinic for hosting this event. The Commission on Presidential Debates will be 1 week from tomorrow, October 7th, at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City. The two vice presidential nominees, Vice President Mike Pence and Senator Kamala Harris, will debate at 9 p.m. Eastern that night. We hope you watch.
Hang with us. We're going to do a quick wrap up and then we'll let you go. Good job, Chris. Okay, so listen, I'm going to pull this off of here. So we actually have quite a bit to talk about, but we're going to do it in a short period of time. First of all, thanks for sticking with us.
Yeah.
I don't know if listen, I know that was by whoever you are, wherever you are, all the way to the right, all the way to the left, right down the middle, someplace not even on the scale. That was very hard to watch. Okay, so I just want to acknowledge that. It's okay if you feel a little. I'm going to take these earbuds out. Actually, we're just going to talk this way. If you feel a little like there were some bumps along the road, if you feel like maybe our political discourse could be a little more polite, or frankly a little more factual on both sides, it's okay for you to feel that way. I understand that was hard to watch, and I do really think it would be interesting to see what would happen if Joe Rogan moderated the debate. I think if you had an on-off switch for the microphones,
yes,
it's totally great. Bill Benner did say this, 80 people. We actually had, we kept the numbers in between 100. I see the Facebook numbers too. We're anywhere between 105 and 130 the whole time. So it's really awesome. And so I've got a couple thoughts, Marquetta, but I want to just turn it over to you, just for your thoughts, maybe one or two things. And I've got a few things written down, and then we're going to wrap this up in a really positive way. So hang with us, because we really do have good news for you. But let's chat about this from a political, really from a business and persuasion standpoint, which is what our goal was going into this.
I feel like when you watch a debate, you should walk away with more knowledge, or maybe more of a sense of, oh, okay, now I understand what this person's policies are and what they're going to run on. But I don't feel like we got that. I don't feel like it was like that at all. It was more so of a who can talk over who the most, which was the most disappointing thing. From a persuasion standpoint, I think there were definitely some tactics used. President Trump came out of the gate reselling himself and reselling his current administration. We won the election, we won this, we won that. He was stating facts, and I think if he had just continued to stand his ground and state facts through the whole thing and be quiet, he may have had a slight advantage. Vice President Joe Biden, he finally at the end decided to look in the camera a few more times than he did throughout the entire debate. I feel like if he had looked in the camera and engaged with the American people more, he may have had that slight advantage over President Trump. But overall, I just think it was, like you said, hard to watch.
Yeah, I mean, if you were, I think if you were coming in as a decided, so first of all, I said this last week, and I said it kind of jokingly, but it's a little bit true in one sense. I said the only undecided voter in America is the person trying to decide how many times to vote. And I kind of said that as a joke, but my point was there's very few people that are undecided. I personally don't know. I don't think I've talked to anybody who's undecided. Most of the people are very opinionated, frankly, about whichever side they're on. The latest study I saw today said there were 6% of America that called themselves undecided. I don't even know if that's true, but that's a very small number. And you could tell, by the way, in our comments in chat, I could see the Facebook and also the YouTube comments, so could Marquetta, and you could see, for the most part, if you came in as a Trump supporter, you're leaving as a Trump supporter. You came in as a Biden supporter, you're leaving as a Biden supporter. But what's more important from a persuasion standpoint, and this is really, really, I think, the hinge on the debate. If you came in with your, let's say, so by the way, if you're anyone on either side, no matter where you are in the middle, whatever, we all have our cognitive bias, right? If you came in believing a set of belief systems about the president because you were on the Democratic side, you left with those same beliefs. If you came in as a Republican on the right, believing a certain set of things about Vice President Biden, you left with those beliefs too. In other words, I don't think neither candidate did an effective job of breaking down the bias against them. And the example I used when we stopped about 15 minutes ago is the example that I'm going to use again. The president was given the opportunity to disavow white supremacy, which I actually think is a layup question. I think you say,
Exactly.
unquestionably, I do not condone white supremacy or any racial supremacy in any form. And as a matter of fact, he just released a plan.
Yes, he did. The Platinum Plan or something.
KKK as a domestic terror organization. I think that's a layup question. On the same side, I think the Vice President Biden could have just said, look, of course I disavow Antifa and the violence that's on the streets. Why would anyone be for that kind of violence? I think we can come together as American people. And I think if that was the most poignant example of 25 other examples where neither one of them was able to break the cognitive bias that's on either side. And so if you believed that the president was a racist, you were leaving thinking that, frankly. And if you came in believing that the Vice President Biden was, supporting Antifa, you probably left thinking that too. And I think that was the biggest thing that happened.
It was. That would have been the perfect opportunity for one of them to stand their ground and say, listen, I don't agree with that. But I think they were both nervous and scared for that individual that not necessarily agrees with white supremacy or with Antifa, but supports whatever movement that they're moving towards. And they didn't want to alienate any of their supporters at all, which shows that there's a weakness there. And if you're running for president, you shouldn't be weak on issues like that when it comes to race and racial inequality. Stand your ground and own it. That's really, really, really important. I think especially running for an office like president, you have to stand your ground on the toughest issues, no matter who doesn't support you after that. If that is a serious issue, you must stand your ground and own your position with that particular issue.
I think you're right. I mean, 100% right. This is an interesting comment from Bill Benner. He said one very important point: Biden did well enough to dismiss some of the Sleepy Joe moniker. It was good for him in that way. And I was, so in the introduction, I made the point that really fundamentally this debate came down to that question in a lot of ways. The question as to how he would be able to respond. In the middle, there are a few times when he stumbled over some things, but it wasn't egregious, and he didn't say anything that was he corrected himself most of the time. When he said there's 2 million people that died, he said there's 2 million people there's 200 million people that died. It wasn't like, it wasn't that extreme. But I think back to your point, I think if the president had just let him talk, he might have, give someone the opportunity to step on their own feet. And by the way, if you just joined us, I didn't really say this throughout, but both Marquetta and I consider ourselves, we're both non-party, registered as non-party preference, and we like to choose the issues based on the issues, not on the party. So we're coming at this as a nonpartisan way, and we wanted to do that for you as well to make sure that you were honored. Okay, a couple other things, and then we can wrap it up. And I want to just talk to you as a business owner as you're watching us on this show today. The word "you" is a very important word for you as a business owner. When I communicate and I use the word "you," I use the word "you" in the second person singular sense. So when I'm speaking to an audience, I'm talking to the person. I'm not saying you all you guys, all you all. I'm speaking to them. And I believe that both candidates tonight, probably the second biggest mistake, the first one I already mentioned, the second biggest mistake was the inability to look into the camera and make a statement to the American people. So let me be the president for a moment. And I could say, listen, I understand that COVID-19 is a big deal, and I know many of you have been affected by it either from a health reason or from a business reason. As your president, I take both of those things very, very seriously. And so some people have accused us of being wishy-washy, but you have to understand, I'm looking out for everyone. I'm looking out for the elderly who are truly at risk at something like that. And I'm also looking out for the business owners who are struggling during this time. And the decisions we make are difficult decisions, but I want to let you know that we have you in mind when we're making those decisions. If you said that, you would actually be okay. And I could do it on the other side too. But the ability to talk to the individual American, I think, is the thing that missed on this. And if you look at great communicators, take Reagan on one side or President Obama on the other side, both of them were very effective at being able to do that.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, one of the most important things I think, and I love what you said and how you handled that, Ed, and you and I, the three of us, me, you, and Ricky, have talked about this before. In moments like what we have gone through with COVID-19 or all of the racial injustice that's been going on, to have that position as a president, sometimes all you need to do is just give a word of comfort or peace. That is persuasive, and not even in a manipulative type of way, but persuasive in coming from the heart and showing people that you care. And I think from both individuals, until Joe was, I'm sorry, not Joe, I shouldn't say that, until Vice President.
We've been working very hard, both of us. We talked about this ahead of time. I said, it's going to be hard, but we got to both.
That's my fault. Until Vice President Biden was talking about I was actually thinking about the comment, Sleepy Joe. That's why I said that.
The comment,
but until it got personal when he was talking about his son, Bo, who passed away. That's when, that's when things shifted. But yeah, I don't know what to say about this.
He could have scored some points on that. By the way,
he really could have.
I want to say hello to a really, really great guy. That's Ricky Breslin and his brand new picture, which I just saw for the first time today.
Don't you love it?
We did a photo. Y'all did a photo shoot last week, wasn't that?
Yep, we did.
My man Mike Koenigs, one of my favorite people in the whole world. Whatever happened to decency and brand representative? I don't think anyone can debate the lack of both in the Trump administration. He's not articulate. Well, and I'd say they both met. They both could have done a better job of that, frankly.
Absolutely.
So David Zett says candidates delivered a Wild West crash course on not so effective communication. All right. So I'm going to say one more thing, and then we'll begin to wrap it up for today. And I'll just tell you, if you're on my weekly flight brief list, I'm going to do an episode this week with some wrap-ups on the debate. So if you haven't done that, go to edrush.com. I actually think I have the website down here someplace, and sign up for that. You'll get my email of the week, which is important for you to get. I think it's right there. Yeah, there it is, edrush.com. So before I wrap up, let me just tell you, I'm just going to be very transparent with you and just tell you, I feel like we talk about winners and losers in a debate. I actually feel like the biggest losers, frankly, were the American people tonight. I started today's show, Marquetta and I started together by talking about how we have a great country. Most of the innovations in the world came from the United States. Some of the biggest social justice movements came from the United States. Some of the biggest nonprofits and humanitarian help in the world have come from the United States. And I'm really proud of what we've done and what we've become. We've made a lot of mistakes. We really have. But we've gotten a lot right, and we're working on getting some other things right too. And I feel like we could have been a little better represented on the stage from both sides today, frankly. I really wish it would. I felt like Chris Wallace actually did a really good job. I had a lot more respect for him after today.
I do too. Yes.
That was a hard place to be in. But I just want to look you in the eye saying what I just said about how I feel like as Americans, we can do better. I'm just going to tell you that we can do better. We really, really can do better. And Marquetta and I have been, maybe for the last 3 or 4 years, working with, talking with, praying with, helping train even some of the future generation of leaders that we certainly hope to participate in. And so let me just tell you, as we leave, with just a note of optimism, there are people that are working on this problem, and it's not just us, by the way. There are people that understand that we are a complicated country filled with great people. And if only we could just get those great people to come together around the idea that we might not agree on every issue. I mean, if we agreed on everything, we would be in a bad place. Sometimes that disagreement gets us to a better answer in the long run. So it's not that we need to agree on everything, but it would be great if we could just agree that we want good people to lead us with good hearts, with good intentions, that we are actually one nation under God, like our Pledge of Allegiance says, or that we trust in God, like our money says, and that we really can make a great impact on the world. And so I just want to leave you in a positive place and just know that this election is going to happen, and someone's going to win, and someone's not going to win. And I know people. I've heard more people say, if such and such wins, it's the end of America. And I've heard it both ways. Let me just tell you, it's not the end of America. The end of America is the end of America, and I don't see that coming in the next 4 years. Okay, it may be harder one way or another, but that's up to how we do it as well. And so I want to leave you with a note of encouragement. We're going to say hey to everybody in chat as we go, but Marquetta, your final thoughts on today.
Well, my final thoughts are that of I'm pretty sure this is true for you too, Ed, but one of the most proudest moments for me as a human being and as an American was there was a moment in basic training when we had just completed one of our weeks where we had to sleep outside for a week. Now, I come from the Air Force where we didn't have a difficult basic training, but this particular week we had to sleep outside for a week, and it required us to come together on one united front. Nobody asked about religion, politics, issues, anything, and we just came together on one united front. We handled the business we needed to handle, and we moved forward.
Yeah.
And when we graduated, they played, I will never forget this, they played the national anthem, and it was the first time in my life that I was standing there crying because I was so proud to serve my country.
That's cool. That's cool.
This thing that we're going through right now is temporary. It's not something that's going to last forever, but we have to understand that one of the things that one of the candidates said tonight is that we do have to get to the polls and we actually do have to vote, but we also can come together on one united front despite what we're seeing on the media with all of the chaos that's going around, that's happening right now. We can still come together on one united front because there are people who love each other. Go to a baseball game, a kid's baseball game. Nobody talks about politics, religion. They don't talk about any of these issues. So you're there to watch your kids. You're there on one united front. And I just want that to be an encouragement to you that we're not talking against any particular candidate. We're talking about unity and fixing some of the issues that we're experiencing in this country. So I just want to leave you with that bit of encouragement that I do believe that there is a change that's going to come at some point that's going to shift the trajectory of our country in a positive light.
That was a great wrap up, dude. I'm gonna have to go back and listen to that again. All right, so listen, I just want to say thank you to those of you who stuck with most everybody who joined us in the beginning is still here. So you are amazing. Valerie said, beautifully said.
Oh, thank you so much.
All right, there we go. That gets that hashtag turned in too. So I love it. And listen, Marquetta, thank you from the bottom of my heart. You had a
so
great day, so did I. Thank you for taking the time to do this. We're actually going to do a quick podcast recording right after this too. But I just want to look you in the eye and say it's going to be okay. And I think we might do this again. Actually, maybe for the next one, maybe it'll be the same and maybe it'll be different. But I'd love to hear your feedback on that. We'll stick around for a few minutes. By the way, I'm going to roll the bumper here, but we'll stick around and chat for just a few minutes to say hey to all of you so we can catch up on that. And let's just say it's going to be okay. And God bless America. We'll talk to you soon.